He is not on yet.
Well, I think we do have a quorum, so.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Millbrae Planning Commission meeting for March 7th, 2022. And we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Del Negro?
Present.
Commissioner Quigg?
You're muted, Commissioner Quigg. You're muted, Commissioner Quigg, but she says she's present.
So sorry, present.
Thank you. Vice Chair Davis?
Here.
Chair Joe?
Here, I'm present.
Great. And then, excuse me, I see Commissioner Wong, so I will promote him into the meeting.
Okay, and can we go ahead and have the, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. If we can get the flag up there. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So let's, we're going to go ahead on to agenda item number 1, which is agenda review. Do we have any items that we need to address on the agenda for the agenda review? We have a simple agenda tonight, so I figure not. So seeing none, we'll go ahead to approval of minutes. So this is for the special meeting minutes of February 23rd, 2022. Do we have any motions or comments and/or comments?
I move to approve.
I think we'll give it to Commissioner Quigg. Since Commissioner Quigg makes a motion, and then I guess Commissioner Del Negro does a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. And can we have the votes, please?
Commissioner Del Negro?
Yes.
Commissioner Wong?
Commissioner Wong, you're
Commissioner Wong, you're on
muted.
mute.
If
We'll
you
come
can
back.
maybe go on to the other. Yeah, let's go back.
Commissioner Quigg?
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis?
Yes.
Chair Joe?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wong?
Where is he?
I see him on the screen, but not.
Yeah, he might be having, he doesn't say anything, but he might be having connection issues.
Okay.
Okay, well, minutes are approved. 4-0
4-0.
with, oh, there you are. Commissioner Wong? Yeah. All right, they're approved 4-0 with Commissioner Wong. Absent.
Thank you. And I'd like to express thank you to the staff because we've been asking for the action item minutes, and that was done here. So thank you very much for going according to that. Item number 3 on the agenda is public communication. So this is reserved for persons wishing to comment on any item under the purview of the Planning Commission, but not appearing on the agenda. Do we have anyone wishing to speak at this time?
There are no hands at this time.
Okay, so we'll move on to item number 4, which is our main project for today. 4A is 1100 El Camino Real. This is a public hearing on a design review permit for a project located at 1100 El Camino Real. Can we, okay. 1100 El Camino Real, 1150 El Camino Real, 33 and 35 Center Street, to allow the demolition and redevelopment of a 6.7 acre site currently occupied by the Best Western El Rancho Inn with a new 5-story, 384 unit multi-family apartment community on approximately 5.55 acres, of which 5% or 19 units will be at the very low income affordability level. I'm not going to read the rest of it because it's on the agenda. So let's go ahead and go to the staff report for this, please.
Just give a brief introduction. Hi, Darcy Smith, Community Development Director. So the project before you tonight represents, frankly, years, usually I say months, but in this case, I'll say years of work And the Sam Fielding, our senior planner, will be giving the staff presentation, but I just want to let you know that I'm here, as well as Roscoe Mata, planning manager, and Mike Conneran, assistant city attorney. And at the end of the presentation, we'll be available to answer any questions you have, along with our consultants who are here tonight. And with that, we can give it to Sam to start the presentation.
He's muted.
Okay, let me go ahead and share screen here. So let me,
Good, we can see the presentation, so you can,
okay, great.
thanks.
Just want to get the no.
Now we can't see it, so can you,
Oh, okay. Let me are you seeing it now?
no.
Oh, no, okay. Let me try it, loading it again. Sorry. I'm just not seeing my my notes here.
We're fine now. We can see item 4A.
Okay. You still see it there?
Yes, we can still see it.
Okay, great. Good evening, Chair Joe and Planning Commissioners. My name is Sam Fielding, and I'm the Senior Planner for the city. This presentation is on the public hearing for Agenda Item 1, the Planning Commission application for the proposed 384-unit residential development located at 1100 El Camino Real, 1150 El Camino Real, and 33 and 35 Center Street. My presentation will focus on the planning, application, and CEQA review, and will be followed by the applicant's presentation that will focus on the project, urban design, and architecture and community benefits. Joining me tonight, available to answer questions after my presentation, is Michael Conneran, the Assistant City Attorney, Heidi Mickelson from ICF, who's the City Environmental Consultant, Gary Black from Hexagon Transportation Consultants, who prepared the traffic impact analysis and the Transportation Demand Management Plan, and William P. from Carducci Associates, who worked on the Millbrae Parks and Facilities Inventory. Let's see. So before I start and move into the presentation, I want to mention that staff did receive 3 public correspondence letters, emails today. We did receive one from the San Francisco PUC, San Francisco Water Power Sewer, that arrived this evening at 4:30. We received an email from Bonnie Patton with expressing her comments on the project. And then we received an email with an attached letter in support of the project from YIMBY Law, organization based out of San Francisco. The objective for this agenda item is to hold a public hearing to consider review and action on a design review permit and the adoption of the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, SKIA, for a proposed 5-story, 384 units multifamily apartment building. The proposed residential development site is located in the northern portion of the city within the general planned commercial and high density residential land use categories and commercial and multifamily residential R3 zoning designation. The project site, as you see here, is bordered by the Center Street to the north, El Camino Real to the west, the San Francisco Water Department property to the south, and the railroad tracks, Martin Caltrain tracks to the east. The 6.75 acre site is currently developed with 8 existing residential units and the Best Western El Rancho Inn, which are currently located on 3 separate lots. The project site land use currently is the El Rancho Inn with the 7 apartment units and a single family home. The applicant proposes to demolish all structures on the site, which are currently located on 3 separate lots, and proposes to construct a new 5-story, 384 unit multifamily apartment building on approximately 5.55 acres of a 6.75 acre site. 5% or 19 units will be made affordable at the very low income affordability level. The project includes 561 vehicle parking spaces and 72 bicycle parking spaces. The project also includes a lot line adjustment and lot merger for the potential future development of a hotel on the remaining 1.2 acres of the project site, which would occur under a separate development application. So a little bit of the project description and the site is shown here. This indicates the entry drive coming in off of El Camino Real. It includes decorated pavers, a drop-off pickup, and seating for 3 bicycle racks. An EVA lane, which is located to the south of the project site, that and basically wraps around the south and then east portion of the site. Some of the amenities included as part of the project are a pet wash station on the southern portion of the project. And then there are courtyards A, B, and C available for the residents, and a fitness center and lounge. The project proposes a modern Spanish or Mediterranean garden style architecture. The style is characterized by the use of tile roofing, stucco walls, arches, decorative tiles or mosaic, and asymmetrical facade. The proposed building would incorporate mission style architecture that reflects the existing character of the El Rancho Inn, while also adding contemporary elements that complement the more recent developments along El Camino Real corridor. The building's flat roof, pitch, and blend of natural materials and siding, and the use of native plants and landscape features are part of the project. The design incorporates, again, mission style architecture. It has a courtyard with the water feature, shade structure, and natural color palette. The pool, courtyard, and amenity space include solar shading, water features, and shade. And then a center street community walkway, which has use of natural color palette. The landscape features are mission style and would include mission style portal adjacent to the center street access that includes decorative tile, decorative lighting fixtures, and project signage. The drop-off pickup area would also have a mission style portal with seating and lighting for rideshare patrons. And finally, the fountain would be updated with the bolt fountain design. These are examples of the color and exterior materials that consist of earth tone colors of brown, grays, and beige, and wood colors that would include, along the first row here, you can see the cementitious siding, trim board, and composite panels. And then the stucco, different types of stucco, beige, brown, and gray colors, and vinyl windows. That would be black. It also has the decorative tiles that you can see there, and the metal railing awning, which would be gray. The project is in conformance with Millbrae's general plan and development standards. Under state density bonus law, the applicant is requesting a waiver of the height requirement and the lot size per unit requirements in order to achieve the density required for the residential development. Under state density bonus law, the applicant is requesting a waiver of the height requirement and lot size, as mentioned before, in order to achieve the density required for the residential development. The proposed project would comply with the density bonus law and provide 5% of the total residential units at very low income level. Hold on just a second here. So under the state density bonus law, the applicable residential density maximum is 80 dwelling units per acre as provided in the 1998 general plan high density residential designation. This would amount to 536 units for the 6.7 acre project site. Hexagon Transportation Consultants prepared the traffic impact analysis for the proposed project. The report analyzed vehicle miles traveled, project trip estimates, trip operations, queuing analysis, site access, on-site circulation, vehicle parking, bicycle parking, impact on transit services, impact on pedestrian facilities and bicycle facilities, signal warrants, and construction traffic. The recommended improvements include a traffic signal modification at El Camino Real and Center Street, new sidewalk on the Center Street south side, curb bulb outs and curb ramps, a mid-block crosswalk, and a high visibility crosswalk striping on Center Street. The TIA concluded, based on the analysis, that there would be a less than significant traffic impact to the environment from the proposed residential development and future hotel with implementation of the transportation, pedestrian, and bicycle circulation improvements and implementation of the transportation demand management program. The project includes a TDM plan to reduce single occupancy vehicle driving and promote alternative transportation modes. The TDM measures include design features, programs, and services that would promote sustainable modes of transportation. The TDM plan also includes an implementation and monitoring component to ensure that the implemented TDM measures are effective. The program will be evaluated annually to assess the actual level of trip reduction achieved at the site. The project applicant will be responsible for ensuring that the trip reduction measures are implemented. This will require that the recommended trip reduction measures be incorporated into the project. And the project applicant will designate a TDM coordinator who will oversee the implementation and maintain the TDM program. On this slide, look at transportation, circulation, and parking. The proposed residential development and future hotel provides improvements to access, circulation, and vehicle parking, bicycle parking and circulation, and pedestrian safety improvements at the project site. From the diagram, you can see the secondary vehicular entry and primary vehicular entry off of Center Street. The dashed lines indicating the vehicle circulation. And then the pink triangles are the pedestrian entry points to the development. The garage entry located at the rear of the project site. And then the primary pedestrian entry here at the front near the lobby. So the transportation or the traffic impact analysis looked at vehicle circulation and parking, and the residential parking will be provided in a residential parking garage at the rear of the project site with levels 1 to 6. There will also be 12 surface parking spaces near the lobby for guests. 521 parking spaces are required under the state density bonus law. The project is proposing 561 on-site partially unbundled parking spaces for the residents and visitors, which would exceed the state requirement by 40 spaces. In addition, there's an emergency vehicle access pathway, yard and pedestrian pathway along the site perimeter, which would also provide access to the outdoor and courtyard areas on Center Street and El Camino Real. Access to the site would be provided via one-way driveway on El Camino Real and 2 driveways off of Center Street, and then the EVA lane along the east side of the property. And access to the parking garage would be from Center Street, and access to the lobby, again, as we've seen in the diagram, would be from the El Camino Real entry drive. The project will provide 72 total parking spaces for bicycles. This would be including 60 long-term and 12 short-term bicycle parking spaces. The long-term parking has 2 dedicated storage rooms located on the ground floor and the first floor of the parking garage. And then the short-term parking bicycle racks are provided along Center Street. There's also a bicycle station for maintenance and repairs that will be located at the project development for residents to use. So the applicant hired a consultant to conduct the survey, a historical survey of the site to determine eligibility for the California Register of Historical Resources. And it was concluded after the survey was completed that the site did not meet the eligibility criteria related to contextual history, architecture, archaeological resources, and integrity. The El Rancho Inn at 1100 El Camino is not eligible for listing due to its lack of significance under the applicable evaluative criteria. In addition, the El Rancho Inn was evaluated in accordance with section 15064.5A 2 to 3 of the CEQA guidelines using the criteria outlined in section 5024.1 of the California Resources Code, and it does not appear to be a historical resource for the purposes of CEQA. Pursuant to the Millbrae General Plan and based on the review and evaluation of the plans and technical studies, staff has determined that the proposed residential development project is consistent with the following general plan goals as referenced in the project packet, attachment to resolution adopting general plan consistency. And pursuant to section 10.05.2500.c.2 of the Millbrae Municipal Code, the design review application material shall be evaluated by the Planning Commission. It is required to meet the following findings for approval of the requested design review permit. Staff determined based on the review of the project plans and technical studies that the proposed residential development project meets the design review permit findings required for approval as referenced in the project packet attachment to resolution adopting design review permit findings. The city is the lead agency under the California Environmental Quality Act for the project and is prepared to Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment. The analysis under the SKIA considers the development of the proposed apartment complex and the future hotel on the project site. The project qualifies for use of the SKIA as a sustainable community project and for streamlined CEQA analysis for a transit priority project under Chapter 4.2, implementation of the Sustainable Community Strategy. The mitigation and monitoring program of the environmental document includes measures for the following elements: air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, paleontological resources, hazards and hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, noise, including construction and traffic, recreation, transportation, construction traffic, and tribal cultural resources, and finally, utilities and service systems. With the implementation of the mitigation and monitoring program for these elements, the proposed project will have a less than significant effect on the environment. The mitigation and monitoring program is included as part of the conditions of approval for the project, along with streetscape, transportation, and pedestrian improvement measures, among other required conditions from Public Works, Fire Department, Planning, and the building departments. At this time, staff is making a recommendation for action tonight at this public hearing to adopt the resolutions approving, one, the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, and two, a resolution approving the design review permit to allow for an approximately 397,272 square foot building on a 6.75 acre site consisting of 384 residential apartments and 8,000 square feet of interior amenity space and a 5.5 story parking structure on a 6.75 acre site at 1100 El Camino Real, 1150 El Camino Real, and 33 and 35 Center Street, subject to the attached resolutions and conditions of approval. Now I will hand this off to the applicant team to provide you with some additional information about the project. Staff, including the city attorney's representative, Michael Conneran, and the city's environmental consultants and transportation and parking consultants are available to answer questions you may have on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Usually we we ask questions of staff. Should we hold off for now until the applicant presents? Is that okay with the commissioner? I can't, sorry, I just scrolled through to see. Okay, so let's go ahead to the
That's fine.
applicant. Thank you. Applicant, please. Welcome.
Great, I'll bring them in. There's a few, so I'll bring them all in.
While they're doing that, I guess I'll just mention that the staff report does allude to a settlement agreement that is in part of the conditions which are included in the special conditions. And I just wanted to make a note that that is not under planning commission purview. So we're not going to be discussing, we're not able to really discuss or change anything in that agreement. So I just wanted to make that clear while we're waiting. And I think the applicants are in now. So if we can, Mr. Metzger. I don't know who's going to be taking it away.
Good evening.
Mr. Davidson, welcome. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Andy Davidson. I think I'm trying to figure out the technology here. Garrett's going to run our. There we go. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Garrett. And thank you all. Thank you, commissioners, of course, for all of your leadership and service to the community of Millbrae, and everyone, staff's hard work on this project. As mentioned earlier, it's been a few years of good hard effort by everybody, and we're really excited to be here tonight. My name is Andy Davidson. Again, I represent Anton Devco. And so, Garrett, if I could get to the next slide, please. I think we can get to the next one. So we've gone through this before, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Anton Devco, we're a multifamily real estate development company. We've been working throughout the state of California for over 20 years now with our primary focus in the Bay Area. We've completed, you could go to the next slide, Garrett. So this map, which you guys have seen before, are projects that we've completed and or are under construction. At this point, all of these projects are completed with the exception of Anton Noma and Walnut Creek. And of course, Anton Millbrae that we're here discussing tonight. But you can see that we've got great experience in the area throughout the Silicon Valley and up the Peninsula, and we're excited to get this project on the map as well. Next slide, Garrett. This is an example of some projects we've done. This is our Menlo Park project, and represents similar amenities that we're going to see at the community we're doing in Millbrae. Next up, we'll just kind of go over the project site. I know we've talked about this a lot, but one of the things that, you know, is most attractive about this site is the walkability, bikeability, the transit-friendly site. You can see here how close we are to the Millbrae station, to downtown Millbrae. We've got the bus stops right adjacent to our site there on Center Street and Broadway. And as you know, we're right adjacent to El Camino Real, which gives us great access down to BART and to the Caltrain stations. Next slide. We all know about the site as it is right now, and we're going to be looking forward to kind of taking the real estate and bringing it to the highest and best possible use. So these pictures kind of show what we've got out there right now, which is a lot of vast asphalt parking, overhead power lines, low-rise buildings, and we're going to bring a new vibrant community, lower those power lines, get those out of the way, get a beautiful landscaping out there and that sort of thing. Garrett? Here's the site plan. I think at this point, I'll let Fred from KTGY speak to what we've got programmed throughout the site. Fred, you there? Okay, well, I'll just take it for you, Fred. Let us know if you get live. So here's the site, as you guys have seen the site plan lots of times. Along El Camino Real, you can see the future hotel site, but the site we're speaking about tonight is the residential project site, 5.5 acres. You can see the building wraps around that front amenity area, which has our pool and clubhouse and fitness room, and the residential building wraps around the parking structure so that it basically hides the parking structure from the public view, again beautifying the project and allowing us to park adequately for the project and all the guests. You can see the EVA. It's all right. The EVA wraps around, so we've got access for emergency vehicles, but that's going to be a combination of different turf block or pavers. So it's not just an EVA road, but you're going to have a dog park, and we're going to be able to use that area for the community benefit rather than just having a paved EVA that goes around the site. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Hey, Andy. Fred Mesker here from KTGY as well. Sorry, apologies. I was not here before.
That's okay. I think I'll go ahead and finish up here, Fred, and we'll kick it over to you in a second.
Yeah, keep going.
So, some of the project benefits we've got, I think we've talked about this a lot, so we'll keep it quick. But obviously, as discussed, we're going to redevelop that underutilized site. We're bringing a lot of much needed housing near transit. We've got affordable housing slated for the project. 19 VLI households will be able to live here. Of course, as we've talked, beautification of the neighborhood, all of the traffic, pedestrian, bike improvements along Center Street. We're going to be widening that sidewalk to give a grand walkway from El Camino back past through Center Street. And then, of course, this application facilitates the future potential construction of a new hotel, which we're excited to work on here in the near future. As mentioned, it's 384 unit apartment community, which is wrapped around the parking structure. That's why we call it a wrap style project. We've got studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms that range anywhere from 500 square feet to 1,300 square feet. 365 of those units are market rate, with 19, as mentioned before, restricted to very low income families. One of the things that we've talked about at length is the regional housing needs allocation, which this helps boost those numbers for you guys. So we're excited to participate in that. And then next up, I want to kind of take a moment to talk about the Planning Commission study session we had back, I think it was May of 2020. We received some pretty good comments on that study session, and so we went to work on those while we were working through the environmental document and everything. We've got some responses to some of those comments here. One of the first comments we received was concern about the parking garage design and circulation, how people were going to get in and out, how we were going to move people in, and how we were going to maintain safe access while people were trying to enter and exit the garage at the same time. So we went to work reviewing all of that. Of course, it was designed, under the local guidelines and state guidelines and all of that. But moreover, Hexagon was able to confirm that the garage entry, as it is capable of handling all the anticipated queuing for the parking cars leaving the parking garage and coming in. We've also added the red curb you can see on the screen there that will keep vehicles from parking alongside so that there's not visibility block. People will be able to see as they come and go. We've sized it. You can see this 22-foot width to allow for cars to pass while they're coming and going at the same time. Next slide, please. Guest parking was something that was of concern. And so, as mentioned earlier, the state density bonus law only requires 521 parking spots, but we've got a total of 560. So on the screen are the numbers there. You've got 508 that'll be permit parking for residents only for the 384 units. So obviously that's more than 1 per unit, which is a pretty good ratio in this day and age. We've got 15 that'll be dedicated to accessible ADA stalls, 17 of which are going to be for EV charging. And then we were able to up the dedicated visitor parking stalls to 20. So we will have 20 dedicated visitor parking stalls on site. Okay. Was that a question? Or? No. As for the move-in, there was concern on the move-in at the Planning Commission study session 2. And so you can see on the screen there, we've got a diagram. The moving trucks are going to pull up along that area right there, and you've got direct access to that elevator to get you to all floors of the building. It's a 45 and a half foot dedicated loading zone that gives you direct access to the elevator, and that's going to be coordinated with property management so that there's, everyone's got a scheduled move-in time and ability to use that time slot so you don't have trucks stacking up on each other. Next slide. And this is something that was discussed probably at length, was the wind. So we've got a couple areas. So we've got the roof deck, which is subject to, outdoor amenity spaces and subject to the wind that was of concern. So we've got a 36-inch tall parapet to help deflect that wind. And then more importantly, the pool was discussed at great length. And so building code requires, health code requires that pool fences be 5 foot tall. So we've actually got a 6 foot tall fence. And instead of just being a fence, we've actually done a windscreen. So this is going to be a clear glass pool fence that blocks the wind, a foot taller than the code requires, to really give our residents the amenity of the pool without the wind that we were also concerned about a couple years ago. So we're pretty excited to be able to make that work, to kind of bring that pool to a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
Last up, last comment I think was related to the way the parking structure is going to look from the back side of the building on the other side of the railroad tracks. So you can see on the top of your screen, the original design, pretty straightforward, backside of a parking structure, with landscaping in front of it. And the current design, in order to help mitigate those concerns, we've added a lot of architectural elements, which you can see behind the trees. And then of course, we've added all of those trees and everything to help block that parking structure. So you get a much nicer experience as you drive by or as you approach it from the backside. And then next up, I'm going to kick it over to Fred Metzger with KTGY Architect, and then also to Mark Schadinger with MJS Landscape Architecture.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, so now what we're looking at is the original sidewalk experience was, and if anybody, less than wonderful. So we have actually increased the sidewalk experience for please continue. Right. And so for us, this particular project has become amazing for us to get to one side of the project and the other side of the project. It's actually we have included the we have included the project to several projects.
Fred, I think this is my fault. I probably Mark should be covering the landscape stuff. So
Maybe through Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. So this is showing the circulation, how you get to the leasing office if you are a future resident. The main entry is off of Center Street, but we also have a very long processional drive from El Camino Real. It'll go by the drop-off area of the hotel, and then it goes around a very elegant roundabout. We have a fountain court that greets you at the leasing office. And then behind the clubhouse is the large amenity area for the residents, the pool area, and then outdoor social and outdoor dining areas. And then we also have additional courtyards behind that. One feeds off of the EVA lane that we talked earlier that's been activated. That's also a dog walking area, and we have painted games in the EVA lane. And then we have an outdoor fitness area. That orange box in the center of the image is our fitness room, and outdoor fitness has become very popular as well. So next slide, Garrett. So these are the landscape inspiration images we'd like to share with you. We're taking the contemporary mission style and using old world materials, but in a contemporary fashion. So with a very resort feel to it. So you can see terracotta tiles, but they're an octagon shape, not square. Instead of doing carpets, we're doing a deco tile. We're doing a very water conserving plant palette, as you see on the bottom of the sheet, outdoor fireplace, and then a lot of outdoor games that this resident tends to like. Next image. So the site plan, we talked about it. We have the pool, we have the Fountain Plaza and Olive Grove. And we see that really is the neighbors meeting the residents. It's open to the public. That will bring the property management company will bring food trucks in on a Friday night. And it's pretty awesome to be able to meet with your neighbors in the residential neighborhood. We have, we're really promoting bicycling in this community. So we have a very elaborate bike kitchen off at Center Street. Very convenient to be able, if you wanted to go to Bayfront Park or ride to El Camino Real to go grocery shopping, super convenient to Center Street. And then we have a pet wash. We're seeing about 40% of our residents having pets. So we have a pet wash off of the EVA lane as well. Next slide. So contemporary mission style. Fred, do you want to take this? Fred dropped off. So it's a play on El Rancho, but as you can see, the El Rancho Motel is a 2-story. This is a 5-story building. So it's the materials are used in a contemporary way, as well as the shapes of the architecture. This is our fountain court and the leasing drop-off area. And then more images. We saw this earlier in Sam's presentation, images of the contemporary mission style. These are the materials. Deco tiles. Here's a view, bird's eye view at the entry motor court and drop-off area. So we mentioned earlier about the prevailing winds coming from the west between February and November. It's really only through this area over the fountain that is exposed to that westerly wind. The rest is in a typical mission style, is in a courtyard, and it'll be very well protected from the winds. So here's the deco tiles, paving. Here's our food court. It's an homage to the fountain at the El Rancho right now. We don't plan on using the existing fountain, but we'll do a bowl fountain in a similar fashion. And then we have the food cart, and then we have the DG and Olive Grove behind the pavilion. So you can just come over, sit on a bench and eat your food truck food, which is awesome. Next image. There's a view of the pool area with the 6-foot-high glass screen. We have temporary bike parking. Those look like rideshare bikes right there. It's pretty good. And then there's another view looking more north from the Fountain Plaza. So Center Street, at the corner of the building, it's about 7 to 8 feet above Center Street. So we have 2 3-foot-high walls that support that instead of a large 6-foot-high wall. We were able to do 2 3-foot-high retaining walls. That's a private patio that you see at the above. And then we do carve out some areas with some public seating. And then we have street trees and cutouts, 4x6 cutouts, about 35 feet on center along Center Street, and an 8-foot wide sidewalk. And here's a plan view of that Center Street with parallel parking. You can see the traffic improvement of the bulb out on the left-hand side and a safe crosswalk across Center Street. And then the undulation of the retaining walls to give it a very organic feel. And then the private patios that are above Center Street. Here's a view from bird's eye view with the seating and public seating. And then our move-in area, our bike kitchen area, our garage, and then the EVA lane. And then here we have no walls here. The building is the same elevation as Center Street.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm not sure what happened with Fred's connection there, so sorry about that, guys. But that kind of concludes our presentation. Thank you guys for giving us the time to speak about the community. If you guys have any questions, let us know. We're here to answer.
Thank you very much. And if you could stop sharing your screen, that'll make it easier for me to see all the windows. Thank you. So first of all, thank you to the staff for all your hard work on this. And we've received a huge packet, and I know that's the result of many, many hours of work on behalf of staff and the applicants, and also to the applicants for addressing, I was glad to see in your presentation, addressing some of the comments and considerations that were made at our last study session on this. So can we go to questions from the commissioners, the staff and applicant? We'd like to start with Commissioner Wong.
Yes, just to note that I worked at the neighboring property over 15 years ago, San Francisco Water Department. I had a meeting this afternoon with city staff, and based on a lot of legal research, we determined that based on that employment, there's no reason for me to recuse myself from this discussion of this proceeding. Okay.
Thank you.
So,
did you have questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, so question for the developer. What more thought has been into the Center Street? It wasn't very clear to me. I think I'm concerned about the neighborhood transition because there are properties across the street on Center Street that are residential houses, single family houses. And so in order to transition from this large, high density development to the neighboring properties, can you talk a little bit more about will people be able to, on that side of the street, the residences, how big are the patios, and will there be much of a residential feel, or can there be more done to make it feel like instead of having stoops and curb appeal and porches, how far will these patios extend in these backyards, and will the people in that side ground floor apartments, will they have a sense of neighborhood and ownership of that property in the median between Center Street and the building?
Yeah, I can speak to that. We worked long and hard on this. One of the things that we're up against on this particular site is the way the grade falls away from El Camino. And so that's what Mark was talking about with the Center Street beautification. We've got, instead of one big retaining wall holding the building up and really providing an industrial kind of, unfriendly, uninviting experience between that neighborhood and this community, we've broken that up with multiple walls so that we've got nice landscaping between wall 1 and wall 2 to kind of make it feel like it's much more landscaped, as you're passing through that widened sidewalk. So the sidewalk we're widening, I think, to 8 feet. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, and which allows pedestrian traffic from El Camino down past our community and into the community you're speaking about across the street on Center Street. We've also got some updated crosswalks that we're doing and that sort of thing. As for the patios, I mean, they are offset, and they were, as because of the way that grade falls away, the natural grade falls away, they are elevated. And so you won't have the interaction in a lot of those places just because the contours of the earth won't allow it.
Yeah, and India, I think, or Commissioner Wong, we did look at direct connection to the sidewalk, but because it was 8 feet above the sidewalk, and that would mean 16 steps down, it just wasn't feasible to make that connection, to call them really truly stoops. So we have 11 ground floor patios that face Center Street, and they're up pretty high. So I think we do have an existing photo of Center Street, just having street trees there, and then about a 20-foot landscape setback. It's an improvement, definitely.
And so what I'm looking for is that I'm hoping, we don't have our residential guidelines out yet, but, just hoping that the residences, tenants in the ground floor can take ownership of that, so that anything they can do to enlarge that area of the patio so that they feel like, they take ownership of that median strip and want to see it really well kept up and prevent people from littering, or for safety, that they can keep an eye on that area. Something would be helpful. Other than that, I think we talked a lot about the second egress in the last meeting for the parking garage. So if you can address that, if there's any other second egress or emergency exit. And then for the perimeter road around the facility, where it says EVA Drive, if you can touch on if that is a road, because in the drawings that you showed, looked like there's a green area, maybe ground cover or grass. Is that a full road for a full-size car around the
Yeah.
perimeter road?
So I'll take that, Andy. So Commissioner Wong, it is meant for fire trucks only. So there's a fire gate at each end of the fire lane. And we simply, a fire lane isn't very usable if it's all concrete. So we presented an alternative material to the fire department and they approved it. So it's grasscrete with portions that are concrete. So it's really meant to, because, you know, hopefully we never see a fire truck back there. So it's meant to be turned into an amenity for the residents. It is behind gates, so it's safe for the residents, but there's no cars allowed back there.
And the last comment I would have is just, yeah, I know this isn't the final design, but we talked in the last meeting about more architectural details. I know you showed a lot of materials and architectural features with like tiles and mosaics and so forth. But I'm not sure if it goes all around the facility or consistent in different areas or to add interest, or if it's only in the front of the building with the reception area and the fountain there.
We have accents throughout the building. You know, as you know, this building is made up of different siding types between Resista and stucco, and then you've got those mission style accents that are throughout the building and some of the main, the key points of the building, if you will.
I'm just hoping that adds interest throughout the entire complex, because I think it's so massive that when you see it, just on first impression on some of the drawings, it just looks kind of flat and doesn't break up with a lot of architectural details. Or beyond that, I really appreciate a lot of the presentation. You addressed a lot of the issues that we raised previously. So I see there's been thought and you took time to answer a lot of our questions and issues from the previous meeting. So thank you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to, ex-commissioner would like to ask questions? Commissioner Del Negro?
Yeah, I'll start some of my questions. I'm sure I'll have more as time goes on here. You know, I am, of course, you know, I wasn't part of this committee, this commission during the initial review process. I do feel like 5% affordable housing is still extremely low for this day and age, and it's very disappointing that we're only having 5%. One of the general design questions, at least for the build, I've noticed, and I'd like some clarification from staff on this one, which is in the monitor and reporting section. Is it normal for a city to allow a developer to pick their own monitor? Does the city at least have sign off saying that they will not accept a monitor during the build?
Are you referring to the noise monitoring?
I think the construction.
The construction monitoring and reporting section 1.2. It allows for the city and or the developer to pick a monitor. I just want to clarify that the city actually has oversight and the ability to decide they do or do not.
Yes, we do have the ability, and we'll work with the applicant on appropriate monitor. For
The
the
city does
project.
have to sign off. Great. Some of the mitigations I'm concerned about during the build. I'll talk about that a little bit here. One is, of course, equipment located on Center Street itself. There is a daycare facility on Center Street. There is residential housing on Center Street. I would be concerned if they're staging large equipment in front of those facilities during the day while they're in operation. And of course, I'd like to know where construction employee parking is going to be during the build. Those would be two key elements to the build itself. And of course, the 30-day notice advance in noise. You know, I understand obviously, you know, the issue that sometimes with advance notice is required, but 30 days, how often is that going to happen? Every 30 days or once in a while they're going to have this type of issue? Particularly what I'm worried about is the school, the preschool across the street. That being said, is, you know, that's 50 feet away from the site. There's a clause saying that heavy equipment will be more than 50 feet away. But farther distance, if there is a sensitive site, does private preschool count as a sensitive site? If so, I would definitely like to see anything that's noise making, pollution making, kept as far away from those children as possible.
Did you want the applicant to
I'd like
respond to that, please?
To acknowledgement that sensitive location is present.
Yeah, thank you for that. We are definitely aware of that, and that is one of the things we've talked about at length with our construction team. is that daycare right there. And so we're going to do everything we can to keep all of the activity as far away as possible. Of course, you know, I'd be lying to you if I sat here and said we're not going to be able to grade the whole site. We've got to grade the whole site. But we are aware and we are going to take every safety precaution necessary.
All right, and I know obviously there are other mitigations to take in your proximity to schools. You are within 1,050 feet of Lameda Park School as a crow flies, and 375 feet of St. Dunstan School. I know that mitigation measures for school proximity are typical for builds. I want those, make sure they're taken into account. All right, so from the build questions I had as far as some of the work, and go into some of the style. You know, I don't really see a substantial amount of evidence for Spanish influence. That looks very, very sparse, if any. A couple tiles here or there, and a fountain is pretty much the extent of what I can pull out of the designs. That seems to me, you know, not really harking back to anything of influence. There's some courtyards, sure, but I don't see any iron. There's no pier columns, no rounded arches. There's no exposed wood beams, tile roofs, or decorative venting used typical Spanish style. No curved parapets, chimney structures, towers, and there's not even any Spanish influence on the signage. So to claim this is sort of harking back to the Spanish influence seems a little disingenuous. To me, this really seems like what we're dealing with is what people lately have called to me the 2010 to 2020 housing crisis style architecture. It's very generic of what we've seen up and down the Bay Area during the housing crisis, these large behemoth builds. I'd like to see some Spanish influence a little bit more than what I'm seeing. Can you clarify quickly? It does appear that all units have a deck. Is that true?
Yeah, all units have a deck.
Great.
And sorry, Commissioner Del Negro, did we want the applicant to respond to?
Well, yeah, if they want to
your
respond to the
comments?
Spanish style influence,
Yeah.
if they plan on expanding it during
If you
the
want to
fleshing out, that'd be nice.
address that, Commissioner Del Negro's concerns?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously, Fred, our architect, had connectivity issues. But the kind of the Mediterranean, the look, they're calling it Mediterranean modern, Med Mod is kind of what they're dubbing it. So there's a lot of, you know, keynotes throughout the building that kind of tip their hat to different Spanish style. I hear what you're saying about the S-style roofs and everything, but that's kind of the modern look that we're trying to blend in. So we've got a flat roof as opposed to the S-style concrete roof that you were speaking about, but we've got different Spanish accents throughout the building that kind of try and tie it all together for that.
But none of that really seems visible from the street or from the outside. It's all from the inside that you're seeing, is what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think when you drive into the main entry to the building, that's gonna glare at you pretty good. And then along Center Street, there's gonna be accents that are going to pop out.
Yeah, Andy, and in Commissioner Del Negro, we do have a entry feature with S tiles and the smooth stucco on the entry portal to Center Street.
Okay.
And then we also have a shade structure at the fountain court by the olive grove where the food trucks are going to park. So we do have two features in the landscape that hopefully will give you a sense of this mission style we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
And then we do plan on using an exhaustive amount of paving materials that will, you know, harken to the same style.
It doesn't come across inside the design pictures that I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also very unimpressed with floor tiles, that blue crisscross pattern. I mean, maybe it's personal opinion, but I'm not a fan of it. I like the idea of putting tiles there. I just don't think that the contrast of it to the rest of the building really gives any Spanish depth to it or really accents the building. But that's an opinion of my own. Structural questions for you. These are going to be some, how many actual elevators are within the facility? In A 6.0.0, it looks like there's only 3 shafts.
Garrett, what's our total elevator count?
Yes, I believe we've got 3 planned for the
Man,
project.
that's very thin for the mass size of this building. You have 1 over in the garage, 1 over in building H, and 1 over near the lobby. I'm a little concerned by how thin that is for the amount of residents going up and down this many floors. Are any of them large elevators, freight elevators?
So they're gurney elevators, you know, so you can get a gurney in case of an emergency. And they are all within the range for egress from the furthest corner of the furthest unit to the elevator. So they're all spaced adequately to provide proper egress for the residents.
I'm, obviously I'm always concerned about people moving in and out sizes of furniture and stuff. I've tried moving things in and out of large buildings, and it's tough if you don't have a freight elevator. This seems like a simplistic question. Are there electrical outlets on the balconies?
Yes.
Wonderful. I also see that you have a lot of synthetic turf. Synthetic turf is currently prohibited within Mowbray. How is that going to work out in the long term?
How's it going to work out in the long term? This has been worked out as part of the with staff. We've been working hard to kind of dial the details of this site in. So I can't speak to if it's prohibited in Millbrae right now or not, but I believe on this project that we're looking to pursue the installation.
Perhaps we can have staff address that.
Yeah, I didn't see that as a comment.
I'll answer
I
the
just-
question. Oh, sorry.
Good.
So the city council did adopt an ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium last October. We can take a look at that and see if it applied to this project, but my understanding from the settlement agreement is that new ordinances such as this would not apply. So I'll take another look at it to confirm through the building permit phase, but I don't think it would apply to this project.
Just make sure everybody's on the same page, I guess, that we're fitting the code. I know that it's sensitive with residents who can't put turf in their houses now. If suddenly there's a planned build somewhere else and somebody can. Lot B, the hotel tear down site, that is being fully torn down in this project. Is that correct? You're not leaving anything behind?
Correct.
Would you consider allowing that to be until something is designated, some open space for some park-like grass or something until you do a build? Just looking at ugly lot and needs of the community.
Yeah, we worked pretty diligently with staff and city council on how we're going to leave that, and that is part of the settlement agreement. We're going to have beautified fence around it, and it will be maintained and hydroseeded.
I'd love to see some park space allowed for people, including in your own development, considering how few parks there are in this community in that area. Let's see. I'd like to make a remark. I did like the bocce ball courts. Wonderful. Your facilities on site, your games and accessible for youth, commendable. Very happy to see it. There's not a lot oriented at little kids though, and there will be little kids on site. I obviously see that on the EVA lane. There's lots of things integrated into the road itself. Can I ask if you'd consider maybe in the very southeast corner, putting a swing set or something small for kids, that little tucked in corner back there?
The problem with swing sets and tot lots is they require various, setbacks and, for safety on the swing set and everything like that. And we don't have the room to accommodate something like that in that corner.
Is there anything else you can help with younger age kids as far as play stuff? There would be parents here in this location for sure.
Yeah, sure. No, we understand that. But I think we're pretty maxed out.
Okay, so you're really orienting towards middle, older kids, teenagers, and young adults. I do also like the dog, obviously, facilities there. Fantastic. I do want to commend the applicant for it. That's a nice thing. I have one big item that I have a real problem with, and I wanted to bring it up next. Trash. Your on-street trash program is a disaster, if you ask me. You're planning on having trash bins for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week on the street. Is that correct? Right in front of the building?
Garrett, I haven't.
Yeah, I can talk to that. No, so the part of the trash program is that we've got compactors and trash chutes on site with the trash rooms, and those scheduled pickups will be orchestrated with the waste management company in Millbrae, and the maintenance folks will roll the garbage bins outside, and then when the designated pickup times are, which will happen in that kind of white loading unloading area off of Center Street. And then immediately our management people will bring the trash back inside. This was also reviewed at great length with staff. There was significant coordination with the waste management company that was done in the plannings of all of the trash rooms, as well as the trash pickups locations, and several notes and requirements added to the plans in regards to the types of bins, How trash and any trash that would happen to blow away in the interim or during the pickups will be handled by the maintenance folks on site.
Okay, but you're still saying that the pickup is between 5 to 11 according to your own schedule, and you're showing multiple pickups on every single day of the week, Monday through Friday, which means that there's going to be trash bins in front of the building in that white zone 5 days a week for up to 6 hours a day. This is also blocking view of bicycle facilities coming down the road. It's right in front of the view of people coming out of the parking structure. I mean, this just seems illogical to me. I don't see how this is reasonable to put them on the street like that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we went through and reviewed that at length with staff and the waste management company. And they all had determined that this was the best and the most efficient way to manage the trash on this particular project.
Let me say, people that live in the Marina Vista right down the street, you have to drive by large bins in the middle of the street every day you're going home. I mean, that just gives a negative impact on them as well. These are large bins. These aren't like tiny little trash cans in somebody's street corner. I just think this is unacceptable from any build to put them on the street like this.
A lot of times the issue you can't, is getting the trash trucks to, if you wanted to put them in the parking structure, for example, we've looked at that in the past on different communities that we've built, and waste management or the waste management company we work with, or that is the go-to in the area, if you will, they just don't accommodate that. They will not drive into parking structures, and they don't have an ability to put their forks through the dumpsters and swing them up into the truck. And so this
You can't
is
put this
how
on
it's
either
handled.
lane. You can't put it someplace else because this is also right in front of the preschool.
We understand that, but like Garrett said, we've worked, ad nauseum through this issue, and everyone's determined this is the best.
I think you still have work to do, to be honest with you, on this one.
Okay.
Moving back to traffic, I'm really happy to see some of the details on your traffic plan. Could you be clear about the traffic signal modifications at the corner of ECR and Central? I could not pull out of this document exactly what those modifications were.
Garrett, do you have those handy?
Yeah, it might even be best to have Gary Black with Hexagon kind of touch on that a little bit. Gary, if you're available.
Yes, here I am. Garrett, you might have to help me on this. My understanding was that was going to be a contribution towards a future improvement at that intersection. So this project would not actually make that improvement itself, but make a contribution. I believe the long range plan at that intersection is to add a left turn lane on Central and then change the signal timing so that it has a protected left turn phase, which it doesn't have right now. So I believe that's a long-term improvement that the city has planned for that location.
I actually would like to ask that instead of just a protected left, it's a straightened left and the right-hand turn is unimpeded. I am constantly coming out of O'Reilly Auto Parts, waiting behind a car who wants to go straight or left for the entire cycle. And that's a long cycle just to make a right-hand turn. I actually would consider that the right-hand turn needs to be free from a straight or left-hand turn obstruction.
So would you like to start, Darcy, did you want to chime in here on that? Or?
Hi, Darcy
Hi.
Smith.
Okay.
We haven't finalized the design for the intersection improvements, so this traffic study makes a recommendation, but as we receive the funding and then move into the actual intersection design phase, working with Caltrans, since it's a Caltrans roadway, we would examine that in more detail and come up with the final design.
Please note that that right-hand turn, you get fuel flowing out of that traffic, not backed up because somebody wants to make a left or go straight.
Noted, thanks.
Right. Let's see. I am concerned during the build of any impediment of center. The entire community of Marina Vista has one way in, one way out, and that's Center Street. So for the entire time of this build, they're impacted directly. If you tried to shut down Center, they can't go home, they can't get out of their community. So, obviously there has to be a mitigation for that, not restricting their ingress and egress. And of course, there's also a railroad crossing. How are you going to solve that problem?
We'll use traffic control plans. I mean, we're obviously not going to shut down access to an entire neighborhood and build a community on site. So there's ways that we deal with this all the time on all sorts of different projects. You have traffic control plans that diverts the lanes, but still keeps them flowing. And obviously we'll work with the Public Works Department to make sure we
to be specific, I'm worried. I mean, you have one trench that's on the west side of San Anselmo, one trench you're building on the east side of San Anselmo. But see, you can use San Anselmo as a divert or a alternative while you're doing the trench that's on the west side of San Anselmo. But it's the one on the east side that you can't. I assume you're probably gonna do half the road, single lane traffic back and forth as far as control. Is that correct?
Yeah, traffic control, that's sorted out through the plan check and permitting process, but
I just want to mark that it is a unique situation that we have a community that has a single way in and single way out.
sure.
The parking structure, I, like Commissioner Allen, it would be very disappointed with a single ingress or egress site. I actually voted no on our previous project for the exact same issue. I do not feel that a parking structure that is 500 and something unit or parking spots should have a single ingress and egress. It should have multiple ways in or out. That is a no-go for me on any project when they start getting multi-stories. I'd like to see Commissioner Wong's comment followed up on. I also wanted to clarify the uncoupling of parking stalls. You are not uncoupling one stall from each unit. One automatically goes with each unit. Is that correct?
Correct.
And somebody can't opt to uncouple them, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. And I think obviously the other one's coupled, great. Sounds like it's a working plan. Be happy to hear, actually had a comment written down before about the 12 visitor spots. You went up to 20. I commend you on that. Actually was something I'd hope to see is 20 spots. But the charging stations, you have 3% of parking stalls are charged. Only 17 stalls for the 384 residential units. In today's automotive world, that is extremely thin for the number of electric vehicles that we have, especially within the Bay Area and Millbrae. Is you have the option to expand that up? Are you leaving the internal infrastructure to expand that as needed over time?
You can always add future, yeah.
All right, so I'm just worried about obviously national standards for electric vehicles with projected future is going way up. The pedestrian, thank you very much, obviously, for the working with the city on completing the pedestrian walkway all the way to El Camino Real. That is essential for the walkability of this project. I didn't like the one footnote I saw on page 9 of the TIA, the transportation, I don't know what the IA was for, but on page 9 of it, there's a footnote that says that your willingness to do this development of this extension of the sidewalk assumes that no right-of-way or utility undergrounding or signal modification would be required. Staff, what's the likelihood that is going to stop that from happening?
I don't think it's going to stop it from happening. It results in a slightly narrower sidewalk in some conditions.
Okay, but there's still a guarantee we're going to have a sidewalk no matter what? Okay.
Yeah.
If I could add, I think it has more to do with the fact if there are utilities under there, they will not be required to be relocated in order to allow the sidewalk to be built, which means there is a possibility in the future that if they do need to be accessed, the sidewalk would need to be taken out and replaced. But
yeah, I do know that between El Camino Real and the entrance to the Zen restaurant, there is some facilities within the walkway area as far as like metal grates with access points to something. I also want to make sure, the connection, there's the Monterey Trail on the south side of the track. Will this 8-foot extended sidewalk go down to the train station or down to the railroad tracks as well?
Yeah, where do we terminate that connection?
Yes, right now there's a small section in between the end of our property line and to where that railroad crossing happens, or pedestrian crossing happens, and we're also filling in that connection as well.
Wonderful, that's great. Your residents will like the access to Monterey Trail, obviously. Bicycling. You do seem to indicate that this is a transit-oriented, transit-friendly bicycle location. You have really no effective way from getting to from this site to the train station with out crossing the railroad track 3 times, going through 3 different separate communities before circling back to the MSASP. Unfortunately, that's the way it is here. I'm not sure that the document really presents that accurately. You do have to go through the Hemlock community, you have to go through Marina Vista and Bayside Manor to even get to the train station without using El Camino Real. Or you have to cross El Camino and go through downtown Millbrae and circle back at the end. I do think that the bike route signage that you put on center is appreciated. Seeing the sharrows on the ground, that's very nice. I would like to see a sharrow in front of your ingress and egress from the parking structure, directly within vision of people coming out of the parking structure, to remind them that bicycles will come down the road. Could you make sure that's aligned with the ingress and egress of the facility?
Did the applicants get that? What Commissioner Dunley was saying?
Talking about a bike lane?
Your bike sharrow.
Sharrow.
So signage directly as you exit the car parking facility.
Yeah,
showing
I get what Commissioner's talking about.
Yeah.
It's a painted green decal on the street, and he just wants to make sure it's right at the apron to the garage, so
Yes.
that they see that there's a bicyclist on the street.
Or a sign on site that actually
Yeah,
says right out.
we're showing it slightly up, not centered on the apron right now.
You want to remind people to come out of that parking structure from the dark to the light that there's bicyclists on there.
I get it. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you allow in-unit bicycles in addition to the parked bicycles? Will there be, I mean, obviously the facilities are nice, but a lot of people don't like putting their bikes in shared bike facilities.
Do we allow people to bring their bicycles into their unit? Yeah.
Okay, good. And there's just people that, own $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 bikes, do not want it inside a public facility, for the public to understand that. And of course, the fact that it's a single site way on the other end. If I'm over in building H, my bike's way on the other side of the facility to go get it in order to be able to leave is somewhat problematic for those people. Sorry, K, building K. All right, I'll leave it there. I'll let other commissioners go. Some more questions here I'll ask.
Thank you, Commissioner Donigo. A lot of good questions. Commissioner Quigg or Davis? Would you like to? No, Commissioner Chair Davis, Vice Chair Davis doesn't have any. Commissioner Quigg, you're muted, so you need to unmute yourself and then you can go ahead.
Sorry. Not a lot. I think Commissioner did a great job with a lot of questions. Trash is always very close to my heart, so hopefully you get it working 110%. I am glad that you heard us from the study session about the westerly winds and have protected it all from the winds and still have some nice weather, because we do get a lot of sun. So I want to thank you for taking that into consideration. I am not in favor of artificial grass by any stretch of the imagination. We need to make sure that with our environment, we keep it as pristine as possible. Artificial grass is not a good solution. And I've learned a lot of things, even from the last study session till now, that I think you better think of a more environmental friendly landscaping. Yeah. The other thing that was close to my heart last time, and I heard you kind of touch a little bit on it, I was wondering what your final thoughts were on keeping the history of the El Rancho Hotel. One thing I did want to bring up is that Spanish architecture that everyone sees now was not always that way. So it is important that we keep the Spanish architecture, but if you get pictures of the whole complex before 30 years ago, it did not look like that at all. It was pretty much plain vanilla. as things were in the 50s and 60s. So I just thought I'd bring that to mind when everyone keeps concentrating on the Spanish motif, which was not original. It only came into being, they had just finishing it remodeling when my son got married, and it was lovely with the Spanish motif. But we do need to keep in mind that it has not always been Spanish motif. But what is very important to me is that there is a lot of history with this hotel. And I want to make sure we keep that history live, not just because it's the Spanish motif. There was a lot of history. I think it's important that we capture this family from way, way back. And I don't know if you thought about where you can show some of these pictures. The underground pool was there, and you kind of touched on it, but not much. And I think it's very important that we elaborate on that. Actually, the hotel was built in the 50s, so it was definitely a 50s motel-like. And am I making myself kind of understood?
Yeah, so did you want to, should we have, because this is a question time for the applicants, so maybe we can have them or the staff answer back, right? Because you had some questions. So maybe I think one, I'm going to put it into a question is regarding the artificial turf. If you've looked into other types of materials, maybe that would be a good way to phrase that. And then the second question was, what are your thoughts in terms of ways to keep the history of the El Rancho? There was a historical assessment done that this can't be a technically put on the registry. So, but I think what Commissioner Quigg is referring to is maybe if there are still some ways to kind of give homage to the history of it.
Inside the lobby or something like that, that would give a history.
Sure. So if the applicants would like to respond, let's give them some time.
So I'll touch on the history and then I'll turn over the turf to Mr. Schattinger. But so our vision for the future hotel, I don't know if you recall in the Planning Commission study session, we really wanted to point to the history, and we're prepared to have pictures on display in the lobby of that future hotel as discussed. And we even have visions of having the Right Stuff bar, as the founder of our company, Steve Eggert, mentioned to some of the staff members in that future hotel. So our goal and intent on those specific items that you're bringing up is to be on display at that future hotel, which is going to be right there on Main Street there with El Camino Real. As for the turf, Mark, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Well, the alternative to synthetic turf would be natural turf, and they do make water conserving natural turf. It's a hybrid Bermuda or St. Augustine. So you have to be more diligent, because with the dog population in this sort of environment, the residents will use any turf that's closest to their front door, and then the turf just takes a beating. So I understand why the city of Millbrae is moving away from synthetic for sustainability reasons, but just be aware that natural turf also takes more water than synthetic, obviously. We only use water to wash down synthetic from any odors or debris. So, but we'll look at other alternatives besides natural turf.
Thank you. And Mr. Conneran, I think, wanted to make some comment.
Sure. Yeah, just to comment with regard to the artificial turf, while the city does have currently a moratorium on it, there is state law that prevents the city from banning it. What the city is doing is working on some design guidelines to assist with, because we have to allow it, how it can be allowed. I think the primary concern is permeability. We don't want to create additional, concrete or similar as much as we need to, that would allow a more rapid runoff of stormwater and overburden our system. So we're working on some design guidelines to how to do that, and I think some other things, make sure there's consistency of the application. But we absolutely, while we do have a temporary moratorium because we want to get these guidelines in place, we cannot we cannot permanently ban artificial turf. That's an issue you would need to take up with the state legislature. I would also say that this project is unique in that they did present an application that essentially freezes our regulations. And so that was submitted before we adopted the moratorium. So I think we're going to have an issue. I think what we'd like to do is provide staff, as we're just in the process of completing our review of those, with our guidelines, and they can work with the developer and see if they can't, voluntarily meet those. I think some of them are pretty straightforward and obvious in terms of permeability and runoff, but others may take some talk. But that's just so you know, that's where that stands.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Quigg, do you have more questions?
Thank you for your clarification. However, the city of Millbrae planted some lovely grass in the spur property.
Mhm.
And apparently it only uses a quarter of the other water that's being used. So I would really appreciate, I can't make you do it. I'm not going to hold anything up for it, but I would really, really appreciate you researching further on that and see if you can't do something like what we have on the spur property, the city of Millbrae. I have another comment that you said that the hotel would for sure have history. However, that's not being built now. And I would tend to think that maybe you could have something upstairs in the recreation room that has some pictures, maybe not that elaborate, but says this is what was here before.
We'll
certainly
work with our interior design team.
Exactly.
Perhaps in the lobby, the lobby area, is that what you?
Yeah, either the lobby
entrance lobby.
area or is the big area upstairs that can maybe have a wall. The family has been here since way in the 50s. And to me, the 50s doesn't seem that long ago, but for a lot of people, that's history. And just some kind of recognition of what was there before and what the family contributed basically to the city of Millbrae. They have been always contributing to the city of Millbrae, and I would just like to maintain that people coming in have something to see. So that's that. And then, like I say, we can't go overboard on the Spanish architecture because that only happened less than 30 years ago. It did not look like that before. I have always wondered, and I'm glad it was brought up, and not necessarily for this particular project. I strongly feel that there are never enough elevator shafts when you start getting very, very large buildings. So that's just a comment. That's it. And you know what? I think that's about it. I think some of the other commissioners have, elaborated on it. But for me, the westerly winds, the history, much more than the Spanish motif. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Quigg. Did the other commissioners want to add any other questions at this time? We'll have more time for discussion. I want to make sure that we let the public speak. Okay, seeing none, I actually have a couple. I'll try to keep it limited, but some of the things were already addressed that I have. One thing with the lighting on Center Street, I believe I saw 3 light poles. Is that 3 large light poles and then the bollards along the way? Can you go a little bit into that in terms of the lighting and how? I just want to make sure we're making it so that there's a lot better circulation, and it's great to see the sidewalk being extended. I just want to make sure that we have, that it's going to be safe. And it felt like 3 felt kind of sparse to me. So I just wanted to get a little more information about that.
There will be photometrics done to make sure that, the proper candle power for life safety is provided.
Okay, so that wasn't done. It wasn't done before. It will be done at that time. Is that?
Garrett, do we have I don't think we have a preliminary photometrics, do we?
No, we've got a preliminary site plan that we've reviewed, and I believe your recollection is fairly accurate there. But so much of the photometrics will be, determined upon whatever the city standard is for the light poles there. I believe they use a Caltrans standard along Center Street, so we'll be sure to meet both the city and Caltrans standards there if applicable. In addition to the different types of bollards and LED lights, and it's getting very easy now to with specific lights to angle those in certain areas and to make sure that you're getting more foot candles on specific areas while shading others. And so we'll be sure to do that study along with the city in the plan review process to make sure that we're adequate there.
Okay, yeah, I just, that was a concern. Schools, and this is more something that was in the staff report, but I wanted to, and in the SKIA, in terms of the school impact on schools, it does say in the SKIA that it's expected, the site is expected to bring in up to 460 new students, potentially 255 K through 8. And then there's a mention of the mitigation would be a school impact fee. That is not part of this agreement and the special conditions. So I thought it would be, I just wanted to ask staff in terms of how that would be addressed, if you can kind of go into that a little bit more, because I think the impact on schools is something that many of the community members would be concerned about.
Or I'll take that. Yeah. So under state law, all new residential development, even actually small additions to homes, pay developer fees to school districts. They're paid both to our local Millbrae Elementary School District and the high school district. And the city building division requires proof that those fees are paid in full prior to the issuance of building permits for the project. And then the school district under state law, uses those fees in accordance with the provisions of state law.
Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of make sure to put that out there. And then in terms of Commissioner Del Negro mentioned it, and I wanted to bring it back, was about the affordable housing. So right now it's the 5%. In Plan Bay area, in our materials, it talks about one of the goals is to have a baseline of 10 to 20% affordable housing. So if I'd like to ask about that feature of it, were there some discussions to get that a little bit higher, or is this part of what's we're limited to because of the agreement? Or I would like more clarification, please.
Yeah, I'll respond to that and then let Mike cover it. But I think what he would start with is it is locked in cement in the settlement agreement. There have been many conversations over this, but as it was mentioned earlier by Mike, this application was filed years ago before the city enacted our current on-site or inclusionary requirement for affordable housing, which is now 15% on-site. That went into effect actually in August of this year, and it went into effect for projects that have not been deemed complete. And so you will see those projects come through in this year and next year. There have been many conversations of the nature of, could you do more? Could you do more? But this is absolutely locked in based on the timing of when this was filed and the city council's approval of the settlement agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Connery, did you want to add?
I was just going to add that the application did conform with the state density bonus law, which for the 5% of very low income housing grants them certain incentives, waivers, and other benefits. So it's clearly something that the state legislature provided for. City certainly had the ability to increase more, but that was not put in place before this application was filed. And as noted under SB 330, they froze the applicable regulations at the time of their application.
Thank you. And I'm not sure who I would ask this of, but so 19 units being affordable, I didn't see anything in the materials regarding which units. So there are studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. Is there a set allocation of which, it's not going to be all the studios or is it all the 2 bedrooms? Is there anything that is said in terms of which ones are going to be the affordable units?
No, they're scattered throughout the site. They're built all exactly the same. And so you won't know one from the other. And that's part of the point, right? Is You don't want to cordon off a section of the building or anything like that. You want to
No,
draw
no, no.
these-
Yeah, so it would be all integrated, but what I'm saying is that would it, is there an allocation or is it just even across the board? I mean, it's 19, so it wouldn't be even, but if it were say 18 units, you would have 6 studios, 6 1-bedrooms, 6 2-bedrooms, or how is that allocated? Or is there an allocation?
Yeah, it's evenly dispersed.
Evenly dispersed, so 6, 6, 7?
Studios, yeah, ones and
Probably.
twos, yeah.
Okay, and that doesn't need to be specified anywhere?
Like what specific unit
By
number
staff?
it is?
No, not which unit number, but in terms of what, I guess this is more my question of staff in terms of which ones it would be, or just making sure that it will be evenly dispersed and it's not, that's just the small ones, like it's not going to be all studios, 19 studios. It's going to be evenly dispersed. Does that need to be specified or is that naturally implied?
Not need to be specified at this point.
Mhm.
The conditions of approval require a housing agreement that's recorded on the property, runs with the land for the term of the affordability covenants. And that document, which is quite a detailed legal document, that spells out exactly which units are set aside and how the city goes about implementing the affordability requirements. So that's coming, and that again, like the school fees would be executed prior to the issuance of building permits for the project.
Thank you. And then just one on circulation. I believe this was a question I had when I was going through the materials, but I think Mr. Fielding said in the presentation that the driveway leading from El Camino Real is going to be a one-way. Did I hear that correctly? It's not clear to me on the site circulation plan, so I just wanted to specify. I thought he had said that that it's going to be a one-way.
The driveway for the EVA?
Driveway from El Camino Real going into the project.
lobby.
Is that a one-way or is that?
I mean, it's a ride in and a ride out.
Okay,
I
so
believe it's
not
a
one-way.
two-way.
It is a
Yeah,
two-way.
it's
Okay.
two-way
That's
traffic.
correct,
yeah.
two-way.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I misheard. So, because I was wondering about that and then I thought I heard
That's
in the
correct. It
presentation.
should be a two-way. Yeah.
Okay.
And to add on to that, we actually did studies with the driveway to make sure there's a red curb on El Camino as well. So that vehicles pulling out have adequate sight distance as well for the
Okay,
speeds at El Camino.
That's good. I was going to ask about that as well. So that's where I was, because if it's a one-way just going in, that's not as much of a concern, but definitely if you're having people being able to drive out. Okay, thank you. That's all I have at this time. I know we will have, I'm sure if the other commissioners may have additional questions, but I'd like to go ahead to give the public a chance to speak. So if you are here, I mean, those of you who are here, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand on the on Zoom in the reactions phase if you can, and then we will let you in one by one. We have I think 29 attendees besides all the staff and applicants here and the commissioners. So we do, just to let you know, we do a 3-minute, limit everyone to 3 minutes. We ask that you try to keep your comments brief and 3 minutes. So that we can hear everyone out. We cannot respond to you when you're talking, but we will have a time to be able to have the applicant respond to any of the questions. And then once we're done, we will close officially the public comment period. So let's go ahead and if
Yes, I'll just go in order of the
Okay.
hands
Okay.
raised. So Ronald Beal, you're first, if you'll come off mute.
Okay, hello.
Hello, welcome. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, good. My family owns 1180 El Camino. And I was wondering with this Center Street sidewalk, it's 8 feet. As of right now, there's not a sidewalk in front of our property on the Center Street. And we really haven't been notified about any of this information about a sidewalk going all the way to El Camino. And of course, our concern is how we get in and out of our property, the restaurant that's there. And so if you could have someone either explain to me how this is going to affect my property and whether it's through the building department. I know that it's always been no parking on Center Street on that side of our property. And I would assume with the problems with the traffic that it would be totally redlined, you know, for no parking. So if indeed this is going to happen, why haven't I been contacted? And then, of course, you know, obviously I'm concerned about any kind of drainage problems onto my property with the fact that their driveway fronts along the back line of our property. And how are we going to divide the property? Are they putting up a fence? Are they putting up, you know, not a fence, but like brick wall? I know I see, when I look at the site, I see there's trees there. You know, I don't want, you know, are these trees going to root and come into our side? There's questions on just how it's fronting our side. And I did write a letter to Mr. Fielding. He's well aware of this. So I don't know if he could share these comments that I asked, you know, that he did answer some of them. But anyway, so that's all I have to say right now. I think it's been very interesting to listen to all of you, because it almost seems like everything is already done. You can make all your comments you want as commissioners, but it seems to me that I don't see any changes coming from what they're doing. I thought it, you know, as an observer, you know, I know you've worked hard and you've got some great questions, especially about the schools and the neighbors and the height of the buildings. I realize the state of California has interfered, but anyway, so those are my comments. My family's owned this property for almost 60 years. And so I really like somebody to, you know, at least address this. If not now, if Mr. Fielding could, you know, send me an email.
Thank you. And we'll make I'm sure staff will make a note of that and make sure to address your issues. Okay, do we have the next?
Yes, Jean Perry, please come off mute.
There we go. So first of all, trees. The last of the large evergreen trees that line the west side of the Caltrain tracks and front on the water department property are going to go away with this development. And I have a question about how many.
I'm sorry, Ms. Perry, you're muted. We cannot hear you. Can we pause the timer? So.
Oh, yes.
Okay, you said, I have a question about how many and then dropped off. So you want to go ahead and continue?
So I have a question of how long it will take for these many trees and the renderings to actually be more than just little twigs. Will my grandchildren who are unborn be able to enjoy them? So I'm concerned particularly about how the heat from this large parking structure is going to reflect on the neighborhood, especially in the absence of trees, which tend to absorb heat. And then the noise summaries seem to only reflect noise within the development. And I think it's significant the amount of reflected noise that is going to happen with this large parking structure. And I'd like to hear more about what the mitigation details are that have been enacted. The plan for the entrance and exit from the parking structure, just yards from the Caltrain Center Street crossing, just looks like accidents waiting to happen. I don't know if the traffic evaluation was done in the middle of the night, but every morning we have commuters coming from the north, commuters coming from the south on their bicycles. We have school children with and without parents, with and without strollers, actively crossing that portion of the street. And I just don't know how that's going to be safe. So I'm not satisfied with how that is. And I think a design change should happen there. And then finally, I do favor affordable housing. I'm happy we have at least those 19 units. These occupants are going to be our neighbors and our friends, and we will bring them soup when they aren't feeling good, and they will have visitors. And I don't think the amount of parking, given how much parking we're losing on Center Street, I don't think there's going to be enough parking, which is going to impact not just them, but us in Marina Vista. So I think that this development needs to accommodate the needs of the people who will live there, as well as the people who live nearby in Marina Vista. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker, please.
Okay, Nathan Chan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Go ahead,
thank you.
Nathan. Thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you for this opportunity to address you on this important development coming to our city. I like the previous speaker, Jean. I do like the fact that this development is bringing 19 units of very low income housing to Millbrae. This is a very difficult type of housing to provide, needs a lot of subsidy. So the fact that there are 19 coming, especially when, according to the latest progress tracker on Millbrae's current housing allocation needs assessment goals, we've only approved 7 very low income units. This is going to be a substantial increase for us. I'm pleased to, I would like to see them that added. However, I do want to add that adding housing with displacement is not something that we want. We don't want to fix one problem by creating others. And frankly, seeing what is being addressed or what is not being addressed with respect to the existing residents makes me very worried that displacement will occur. What I saw in the environmental assessment as well in the staff report is a reference to the fact that, oh, these units are market rate and the leases are month to month, and so relocation doesn't apply. But according to the same staff report and the state law, there should be some outreach to the residents to establish if, based on their current income levels and household sizes, they actually qualify for affordable housing based on area median income. It doesn't seem like that sort of outreach was done. It doesn't, and so doesn't seem like there was enough questions asked to establish whether these residents do have a right of return. There was a Daily Journal article last year that mentioned that, quote, the agreement between the city and the developer will provide 8 affordable housing units for the site's current residents, end quote. And I didn't see that in the resolution language at all. It worries me that this may have been dropped. When I canvassed that property to try to talk to the residents back in December of 2020, none of them had reported being contacted by the developer. They didn't know the timeline about when this project was going to be built. It seems like many of them speak English as a second language. So to me, this seems like a population that is vulnerable and we don't want to displace them. So I think there needs to be more done on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have next speaker, please?
Janine Barrett.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
I live in, I gotta see the timer, sorry. I live in Marina Vista. And one very important thing that I haven't heard brought up is our plumbing infrastructure and that how many problems we have with flooding on the east side of El Camino. Now, with a 386 unit complex here, what is right now we have a temporary fix right there at the tracks where they tried to fix the plumbing from Landing Lane. So when you have all these residents, flushing their toilets, what is the impact going to be? And can our infrastructure handle this, increased plumbing? I don't want to have to, call a plumber out to my house because, the turf that was put in, the rainwater is just running off and it's not absorbing to the ground, and it's causing more flooding, and Landing Lane is flooding, and I flood. And I don't know how many other Marina Vista residents flood, but I can't believe that I'm the only one that floods when there's a really bad rain. And that's my biggest concern. The other one is I want to make sure that the topic that Jean brought up, the trees, I don't want to look at this 5-story monster parking structure. It's just unsightly. We already deal with, the train, the planes, the Coast Guard, and it's just the impact. I just haven't heard, there hasn't been outreach to Marina Vista, and the impact on our neighborhood is the greatest because we only have one egress. And when we're lined up at the trains, the tracks, you're butting right up against the entrance to the parking structure. So how are there's no way the cars are going to be able to get out because you have the cars lined up waiting to get into Marina Vista. So you're going to have a traffic jam right there on a daily basis. So I don't think that was taken in consideration when they did the study on the traffic impact. I think that's about it. Just the plumbing infrastructure, the trees, and the garbage. I don't want to look at, I certainly do not want to look at garbage dumpsters on my way home every single day. And also these poor, preschool kids, where are the parents going to park? Where are the teachers going to park? Where is there going to be drop off? There's a lot of problems that I see that haven't been considered and definitely need to be addressed. And there needs to be an outreach to Marina Vista because we are the ones that are ultimately impacted the most.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we have the next speaker?
The next speaker is Marina Vista. Please come off mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
thank
you. Welcome. Go ahead.
Great. Like the woman before, we have a major concern about people making left turns out of the parking structure. The volume, that is our only way out of Marina Vista. And I think there's going to be accidents waiting to happen. Plus, like she was suggesting, if there's trains going, the people will not be able to get out of there. We also have a concern about the 20 extra parking spots for visitors. With that many people, they're going to have more than 20 visitors. And those people will probably park in the Marina Vista area or in the Landing Lane area. So just a real concern there. And if there's a need for emergency exit of our neighborhood, people will not be able to exit quickly. We have, like San Bruno, we have a gas line running along Monterey. If we have a fire and needed to exit like they did in Paradise, how do we get out of there quickly? Especially with the volume of people in the condos. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Millbrae Nursery School. Please come off mute.
Hello, I'm off mute. Thank you. Thank you for opening this up for discussion. I'm with Millbrae Nursery School. I'm the director. I've been there for over 23 years, and our preschool has been there for 83 years. We have brought up repeatedly our concerns about the neighborhood, the parking, the one entrance and exit to the facilities. While we certainly support affordable and housing, it doesn't make sense with Marina Vista having only one entrance and exit. With Zen Peninsula, without the COVID, they had the whole weekend all the way up San Anselmo, Center Street, filled with clients who are going into the restaurant. There was never affordable or available parking. So that is another concern again. And it doesn't seem to have been addressed. I thank Commissioner Christopher for his questions and concerns. He's been about the only one who has brought up concerns about the schools. We have walkers who go in and out of Marina Vista to Lamita Park, and it hasn't been addressed. The flooding is horrible. And we actually lost some families down the street because there are no rainwater drains. No one in Millbrae has addressed the flooding issues that go down San Anselmo Center Street. And now with 340 more residents, I can't imagine, when is that going to be addressed? I just heard today for the very first time that you're going to have trash containers out on Center Street. How does that beautify our neighborhood? So these are concerns that we have brought up for the last couple of years, and they still are not addressed. And I'm concerned that the commissioners are not addressing that neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood of families, and no one seems to be considering the parking, the entrance and exit, and that community of people. And I'm really sad to hear that there's that disconnect of that families that live over in that area. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. May we have the next speaker, please?
Megan Bogney.
Hi. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
I work at Millbrae Nursery School. I am a teacher and I've been working there for 15 years. Since this project has started, I have not been or have not seen anyone from the developing plan, Anton, come in and communicate with us and gather ideas or get a understanding of what and who we serve. We serve families in Marina Vista, Landing Lane, and other parts of Millbrae. And there's only one way in and one way out from Marina Vista. We have families who walk every morning, every afternoon, down Center Street to school. And my concern is, one, what more than a crosswalk are they going to be adding? Many cars leave Marina Vista for work and are zooming past the speed limit. And we've asked for traffic stop signs or crosswalks and have received nothing. But with the development, now they're ready to, you are ready to apply that. I've heard that there are going to be putting a white zone parking for moving by the garage. That's where many of our families, many of our staff currently park. So you're taking away parking from over 60 families, from over 10 staff members. Where do you see us parking, especially with only 20 visitor parking spots? Where are we to park? Also the flooding issue. I've been working there for 15 years and every year there's flooding. Our school has had to have a major reconstruction because we got mold from sitting water, and nothing's ever been done. And so now you're adding a large complex. What are you going to do to ensure that a nursery school that's been there for 83 years can still sustain with flooding? What are you going to do for Marina Vista due to the flooding? I'd like to see those things addressed. Also, before my time's up, I'd like to thank Commissioner Christopher Del Nargo, because he's the only one I've heard mention a nursery school in the neighborhood. He's the only one who's addressed concerns about the construction, about the noise, about the contaminants that possibly can be brought into our community. He's the only one. And I think the rest of the commissioners should really be ashamed of themselves for not addressing that there's been a nursery school that served under low income families in the community for 80+ years. That should be very shameful of you all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands, but do we have more people who would like to speak? I want to make sure. Okay, before closing public comment, I think it would be good to, I would like to have maybe the applicant can address some of the questions, issues that came up along the way, and then we'll keep the public comment open, if that's appropriate, to keep the public comment open in case we have a few other people who are trying to get in. So of the applicants, there were a bunch of issues. I wrote all of them down. So did you want to just address?
Yeah, I think, I'll do my best. And if I miss anything, you can help me stay on track. Okay, so one of the big issues I heard was flooding. I think we all heard that repeatedly. And, Casey from BKF is here. He's our civil engineer. But I want to remind everyone that our current site as it is right now is a large site full of pavement that does nothing but shed water. And what we're going to be doing is we're not going to be shedding water. We're building buildings that are going to contain water and treat water before discharging that. And so our drainage is actually going to be reduced before after our project is complete. It's a net benefit to the community as far as storm drainage goes. If there's more questions on that, I can defer to Casey for the engineering, and he's much smarter on that topic than I'll ever be. Also, too, we heard some concerns about the outreach to displaced residents for the development. We have outreach to them. There's currently 4 that are occupied. And this is in the conditions of approval on how this is dealt with. So there's definitely a mechanism on how we deal with this. That's been it's also part of the SB 330 state housing law. So I think that takes care of itself.
So, Mr. Davidson, sorry, just to make clear, so that is, I did see it actually in here. So it is in the conditions of approval.
Correct.
To address and give them the first right to be able to come in. I think that's okay.
Okay, and so the next issue I picked up, there's some concerns about the parking structure. As we discussed in our last planning commission study session, this was brought up. And I think we did a lot to try and mitigate that as best we can.
I think the question, if you can just explicit, because there's a lot of material, so I don't think everybody's had a chance to go through it, but
sure.
In terms of, did you take into consideration the railroad track, that it's going to be, the railroad tracks are there, that you have the commute from the Marina Vista neighborhood, that kind of thing. I think it would be good to go into a little more detail for the benefit of the
and you're speaking about traffic at that point.
Traffic, I think the parking structure exiting from the parking structure causing the traffic, right?
Yeah, I hadn't gotten there yet. I was speaking in remarks to the fact that there's going to be a parking structure, and they were concerned about the noise reflection and heat reflection.
Okay.
And so getting to the traffic, Gary's still on, and he can speak more about that. I mean, we did extensive studies on this to make sure that there was no impacts to the traffic patterns or no significant impacts to the traffic patterns. So, Gary, did you want to kind of touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time on this because as you said, this subject was discussed extensively. We actually wrote a special standalone study just of the operation of that driveway in relation to Center Street. All of our traffic studies were done pre-COVID, looking at the traffic volumes that were on the street at the time, considering the backup from El Camino and whether that would cause any problems, whether the driveway would exacerbate any delay for cars getting out of the neighborhood, and also interface with pedestrians or bikes. And our conclusion is that the driveway would function fine. It would not cause the residents to experience a lot longer delay trying to get out of the neighborhood, trying to get onto El Camino. So I can go into as much detail as you want, but that's kind of a quick overview.
Okay. Noise. There was concern regarding noise and the reflected noise of the large parking structure.
Yeah, so there was a couple comments. The first comment regarding noise was about the noise from the community. One of the concerns was that the noise studies was only addressed what the residents of the new community were going to,
generate.
And so generally speaking, there's noise studies of what the community impacts. I mean, this is a residential community, so we're not expecting noise to be leaving the community on that front. As far as the noise reflection of the parking structure, again, that's mitigated, as best it can with the landscaping and everything we've put in front of it.
And related to that, there was a question about the trees in terms of how long it would take to enjoy the trees that are being planted there. That would be
I'd like
planted
to
there.
believe we can believe them right when we plant them, but Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy them day one. But we were asked by the commission or a staff member a couple of years ago to put in some vertical poplar trees back on the property line so that they grew vertical and hit as much of that parking structure as possible. And we also have some tall palm trees. So day one, they'll go in at 12 feet. They'll grow about three feet a year. So in 5 years, they'll be 15 feet. They'll be, close to 30 feet high. So, and then we talked about a lot of the mature trees on site. We did have a tree report done. And we are salvaging 11 mature palms that are on the site. And we're removing 55 trees. And there were no, according to the City of Millbrae's definition of landmark trees, there are no landmark trees on the site.
Okay.
And then there was one more, the owner of the restaurant on the corner. We have about 6.5 to 8 feet of landscape area between her rear wall and our entry drive from El Camino Real. So we should have no problems putting in trees that are vertical that would create a nice streetscape for our entry drive and not hinder anything on her property at all. So it's a generous area by today's standards. It's about 7 feet wide.
I think there was a question about not being notified. I think that maybe as a staff, I would think that that property would have been notified. Maybe if the staff can address that, please.
Yes, it was notified with public noticing requirements, 10-day mail notice.
Okay, not notified, I'm sorry, about the sidewalk to El Camino. I guess that's where.
So yeah, the sidewalk to El Camino, I mean, that is been on the project plans for some time. It's all within the right of way, so it will not encroach onto private property, right? So it's all contained within the right of way. So it's not something where we would need their permission to install it or whatnot. And so I think what normally happens in these projects is once we move closer to construction, then there are much more conversations relative to the work in the right of way and the traffic control plan and so on, and how that actual construction happens. But the project itself doesn't, flow onto that property. So there have not been any need to have, conversations about affecting their property, changing their property, encroaching onto their property or whatnot. It can be contained within the right of way.
Okay. And it seems like that it might be good to, because there is a lot of detail involved, so it might be good to actually make sure to reach out and make sure that that is addressed, the concerns are addressed. And then about I guess the nursery school and hearing from the developer and the level of outreach, there were a couple of concerns about that. So maybe, I don't know if that's if it's a question I should be asking of staff or of the applicant, but that did come up a few times. So was there any?
we did, yeah, I think there's some confusion. We did reach out a few times, and we had the public outreach for the entire project that we noticed everybody. So I'm not sure what the confusion on that.
Much more to say. Okay. I'm trying to go through my note. I think there are a couple of things we didn't address, but I see some more hands. Mr. Conneran, I'm not sure if you can, I mean, you have some comments, but also I think there were some people who already spoke. So if you can let me know if it's fine to let them speak again. We don't have a lot of people speaking. So
It's up to you.
Okay. And what were you were gonna?
I was just going to note that in terms of parking, that is one of the topics addressed in the settlement agreement. It's something that's limited by state law. The number of parking spaces was affected by the density bonus, which the developer is entitled to. So I understand the concerns, but that's one of the areas where we don't have full discretion to require additional parking.
Okay. Thank you. Hold on, let me finish writing. Okay, so I think I'm going to keep going through my notes, but we do have some more hands raised. So why don't we go ahead? There are only 3 that I see so far. So even though a few people have spoken already, I'd like to give them a chance to speak again, if that's okay. So go ahead and.
And you'd like me to restart the 3 minutes?
Yes, please.
Chair
We'll
Jones?
still
Okay.
limit it to 3 minutes.
Okay. All right, great. Megan Bogney, you're the first one to re-raise your hand.
Hi, thank you.
Hello.
Just some questions. One, where can I find the study that you did on the parking? Because I'd really be interested to see your findings of when it was taken and when it was done. As someone who works at the preschool nursery, that street is very busy. So I just like to see the findings because I find it hard to believe that people coming out of a garage while people are going and coming to work is not going to affect the traffic on that street, especially for our families and our staff. And the only other question I didn't hear answered was I'm not asked, I wasn't seeking for additional parking. I understand you can only provide so much parking for a street. However, you're saying that you're going to add white zones, which are normally timed and cannot be parked for long amounts of time. And so if you have staff members who are working there for 8 hours, where am I supposed to park that's not going to be affected from other residents that live in the neighborhood? So there's residents on San Anselmo. So that parking space is normally very congested. And then I would be walking in or walking out to come to work from the Marina Vista. So what I'm asking is, what is your suggestion, or how are you going to allow staff to be able to park there for long periods of time without being ticketed or affected to look for parking when you have 60 families also stopping and dropping off their children? And then on top of visitors who may be visiting and having to park on the street. If you're having a white zone for dropping off and loading and moving, and also red zones to curb out the garage area and red zones on the other end. So where do you see, or how do you fit the existing business in the community that's been there for 80+ years?
Okay, thank you. We'll ask them to address that. And I think we have one, I see just one more hand.
Yes, Janine Barrett.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you hearing us out. I mean, it's a concern for the Marina Vista. And I just want to ask Mr. Black a question. They recently have changed the timing of the Caltrans gate. So I don't know what happened, if it's just the commuter train or the freight train, but sometimes you will sit there for 8 minutes. So there's going to be a buildup of cars. So my question is, if you have 6 cars waiting at the train tracks, in your study, do those 6 cars run right into the entrance of the parking lot? Which I don't have the diagram in front of me, so I can't compare, but I think that the cars built up waiting to get into Marina Vista are going to block that driveway. And then my other, just reiterating the whole flooding. I understand that you're going to process your water and do all this, but you're not actually changing the Millbrae infrastructure to handle the additional capacity of all this waste. I mean, I don't like, unless you're building your own water treatment plant into this, new development, I don't see how it's not going to affect our current issue that we have with the flooding. And it's not, and everything else is just superficial and we can learn to live with. But when it comes down to financial and having to call out plumbers all the time to re-snake our drains and to sandbag, it's a financial impact on Marina Vista if the plumbing is not looked at and there's a permanent fix. Because right now, going across the train tracks with that big yellow hose trying to drain the water from Landing Lane, that is just a Band-Aid, and it really needs to be looked at. And I just can't emphasize how much it will affect Marina Vista. And I do want to thank Mr. Delgado. I'm sorry if
Negro. It's okay.
Thank you so much for bringing up all these. I mean, I'm blown away at your concern for the residents, and I want to commend you for that, because I just don't see anybody else really caring. But thank you for listening.
Thank you. We have, I think, Millbrae Nursery School. I don't have your name here, but I believe your hand went up again.
Thank you for letting me come back on. It's true that the flooding is an issue and hasn't been addressed for quite a few years. And so that definitely needs something that the commissioners need to look at, whether or not that is Anton's discretion or it belongs to the city of Millbrae. But they should be caring about this neighborhood, not just Marina Vista, but also going down to Lomita Park, because that area floods as well. I have families and I have staff who live in the Marina Vista. They did not receive a notice, contrary to what was said earlier. They did not receive any notices that this meeting was taking place. And that was for previous gatherings, because I think it's been about maybe 2 years or at least a year and a half that you've had these meetings, and I have been on the watch to see if these things are addressed. So while I understand that the beauty of your facility is important, I think the neighborhood, the flooding, the parking issues, the trash issues now that have come up, as well as the entrance and exit of Marina Vista, should be addressed by the commissioners if Anton is not going to be looking at those. I didn't hear clear, precise reasons that they were going to be worked on and corrected. And I'm still not hearing that. So hopefully the commissioners will get together. I understand that you are required because of issues that have come up in the delay of this process, but it would be nice for the commissioners to really address this neighborhood. While I know we're not up by 280 and those homes, there are special families and houses in the Marina Vista and in San Anselmo. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I think that's all we have of the public. I'm going to go ahead and have the applicant make a couple more responses, and then I'd like to close public comment. I know Commissioner Del Negro, you have your hand raised, but I'd like to close public comment first, and then we can go to commissioner comments, I think, from there. So there were, I guess, the question about where to find study on the parking. I think that's for both. I think probably the staff can answer that better.
I think if I understood correct, I think she
Yes.
meant the parking garage because she was speaking to
Studies on the parking analysis. So
the
parking analysis, parking and
I
traffic.
think she meant traffic.
Traffic
I think
analysis.
she meant the
yeah.
traffic impact
Mhm.
analysis, which is of course in the environmental document.
So that's in the
Yes.
environmental. I'm just trying to make it let you answer, but it's on the
Okay.
website.
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Joe, the parking analysis was prepared by Hexagon, and we have an attachment is the parking impact analysis that's attached. It's also on the website. It can be downloaded. And I'm not sure if Gary has anything to add or can probably point to a specific.
Thank you. A question about the white zones. So the white zone being along center, I think it seemed like maybe there was a concern that the whole, besides the red zone, everything would be white. So is that the case? That's not the case, I think. Right?
Casey, you want to speak to that?
more?
No, the white zone's only 45 feet. So yeah, the white zone and the red zone will be the decrease, but otherwise most of the parking will still be out there. It's not taking all of the parking away. That's just for moving in and moving out.
Thank you. And then there was a question about if the Caltrans gate, because the Caltrans, if there are cars lined up going into Caltrans, right, trying to go into the neighborhood, Marina Vista neighborhood, and there's a backup, what will happen in terms of cars trying to get in or out of the garage?
That's what I think she was talking about with the parking analysis and the traffic impact analysis. And so, and she's talking about the Caltrain gate.
Caltrain, sorry.
So Gary, if you want
to. Yeah, during our observations, we did not see what the commenter was talking about in terms of a backup when the gates are down, how long the backup was. She mentioned that she's observed 6 cars backed up at the gate when the gate comes down because it's down so long. And but 6 cars would not be enough to block the driveway. So that would not block the driveway to the parking garage.
6 cars would not block the driveway to the parking garage.
6 cars would not block the driveway.
Okay, Mr. Conran, did you want?
I just had a question for
Do you have
Sam.
something?
Couldn't the street be marked there to make sure people don't block the driveway?
Yeah, it could be marked, keep clear, to keep the driveway clear, so cars have free ability to enter and exit.
And then there was, again, the issue of flooding. I think it's actually 2 different issues that we're talking about. So maybe if you can, I know there's a lot of more detail, but if you can give a little bit of more information regarding, one is flooding, which is the natural flooding. And you're saying, you know, and you were talking about how the project would reduce that level. And then I think the second concern was actually regarding wastewater sewage management and making sure that that the infrastructure is strong enough to take care of the additional load. So if you can address those.
Yeah, I'll let Casey take care of that.
Yep, I can answer those questions. So as Andy mentioned before, the existing site is just a big parking lot, which dumps a lot of water off during a rain event into the low zones, the low elevation zones. And what our site is doing is, one, increasing the landscaped area. So that's going to allow more water to infiltrate into the site instead of running off the site. And then one of the other aspects is that we have stormwater treatment areas all throughout our site, which is actually, we're going to take all of the water, put them into a treatment area, which kind of filters, removes the sediment, and it actually slows down when we release the water into the public system. So what that does is it allows the natural rainwater to flow off, and then a certain time later, our water will flow off the site. So it's less of an impact onto the city main. And then the last thing in terms of stormwater is we actually worked with the Public Works Department. There are 2 different mains, storm drain mains in Center Street. And so we're going to be connecting to the one that is not impacted as much. So we are going to be redirecting that and rerouting the stormwater. So it's going to have much less of an impact onto the city system. And then in terms of wastewater, our proposed residential project has a similar amount of units as the existing hotel. And with low flow fixtures, much more sustainable items that are put into the building, our residential project actually has a 3% decrease from the existing hotel in wastewater.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Conran, did you want to add anything, or your hands raised? So. Okay. All right. So with that, I don't see any more hands raised. So if we can, please I'd like a motion and a vote to close public comment before we go into commission discussion. Do I have a motion to close public comment?
I move we close the public comment.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first motion and a second. So can we have the vote, please?
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
Commissioner Del Agro,
Yes.
Commissioner Quake,
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Chair Joe.
Yes.
Thank you. Public comment is closed.
Thank you. So I know Commissioner Del Agro, you've had your hand raised, so we'll go ahead and go to you. I know we didn't address actually the trash issue further, so not sure if that's what you wanted to go to, but I thought we would take that in discussion.
I do want to make a public comment here to the community. I understand this is very emotional. I ask that you please don't assume that the rest of the commission is not highly concerned about our residents of the Marina Vista. They most assuredly are. I want to point out I was one of the first speakers to speak up. Often commissioners don't repeat the same things over again. Just want to affirm the commissioners share a concern about our Marina Vista community and definitely hold you guys in high regards with our considerations.
Thank you, Commissioner Del Negro. It's good that you brought up the issues though, so I think that's good. But yeah, definitely, I don't think any of the rest of us feel any less concerned for the rest of our neighborhoods. And I think all our neighborhoods east of El Camino have, taken a lot of the brunt of development. So we're trying to balance all of that, all of the needs and be aware of it.
With that, can I follow up a couple more questions?
Please do, and then you can continue on.
Can staff please reaffirm that all park impact fees apply as they were stated somewhere in the development? Please give us a number of what that was.
I believe it was 2 million. It's in there.
Changing, with all the changing issues as far as when things were established, we're clear that we're having a specific number for park impact fees.
Have Mike Conrad answer that.
I'm looking for the exact number. It's in the range of $6 million.
$6 million?
I believe so, yes. And that is right. That was part of the settlement, was the timing of this project compared to the timing of the city implementing the fees.
Okay.
That was really at the heart of the settlement that the parties came to an agreement on.
Maybe we can get a number for the public while I'm asking some of the
Let me just look it up. Yeah. It's
In the special conditions of approval, it has a 7.9 million for citywide park and acquisition and facilities. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
There as
So
well.
it's 7.9 million, and it's in special conditions
That's
90.
the total, right.
Great, thank you. Just
Number
so the
90.
public is aware of
Not all
that.
parks, though.
It's not all parks. The park was.
Yeah, let me find the condition. I'll give you the number.
The total was 9.29 million, and then 7.9 of that is citywide park acquisition and facilities.
Okay.
Again, it's in special conditions number 90 of the resolution.
And, Commissioner Joy, I'll add that it's on page 14 of the conditions.
Thank you.
All right.
Did you have one?
See, the very low-income housing, towards Chair Joe's points, we have strong community concern about the impact on education in Millbrae. What are the chances that you consider mixing the impact of the high-density housing and the new people with a desire for helping local teachers as a preference for the low income housing? I don't know if they would qualify or not for very low. They might be a little higher than that overall. I'm just trying to think of maybe some alignment that could help mitigate the concerns the community has on education. Is there a chance that that would be a preference like they did for veterans housing at the MSASP?
Take that first. It's my understanding, having worked on this issue recently, we're working on an affordability agreement right now, that we cannot include any language that gives preference based on the source of income, and that's under federal fair housing laws.
Okay.
The veterans housing is different because they receive direct funding in the form of VASC vouchers. So they essentially funded that, and that is a preference, but not a mandate. If there aren't qualifying veterans, then it goes to the general population.
Okay.
For example.
Right.
But if the school district, for example, built housing, then they could, and they owned it and leased it, then they could impose that because essentially they own it. But the city, as I understand it, cannot impose that mandate under federal fair housing laws.
Okay, so this remains open.
But I should just emphasize that we do a marketing plan when we have these units. And we do make sure we get the word out to the local community to the extent possible.
I have two side questions about the facilities. One in the parking structure. It looks like there's at least an open rooftop on part of it. Is that true? Is there like 50 spots up top that are exposed upward and a surface area covering the other half of the 6th floor?
Yeah, by nature of the parking structure and the way it corkscrews up, you're going to have some of it exposed at the top.
And is there a plan for anything on that rooftop of the parking structure?
No.
Solar or anything like that? No? And I also have one other question. There's some storage locations in the parking structure on the northwest corners. Are those storage for the facility, storage for residents?
Garrett, remind me, I can't remember what that is. That for the residents or for our on-site facility?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times in the conceptual nature of the drawings at this point for the site plans and the layouts there, that'll end up getting used for utility meters, storage, maintenance offices, some of the more back of house type of uses in this particular location.
Cleaning and yard landscape type stuff. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. I guess that's the extent of my current further questions. I'll move on to that. Somebody else.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners would like to Commissioner Wong.
Okay, so this is we've had a meeting already to discuss the plans and the study session. Just in response to public, we're really concerned about the neighborhood concerns. That's why we have this public review process, and that we do want to make sure that these facilities or new developments don't have major fatal flaws, and that they do address neighborhood concerns. This has been going on for a couple of years now, this project, and it's all over the papers with the city and the council members and the city staff really pushing the developer to provide monetary benefits and address their fair share portion of city services. And the developer ultimately agreed to that. So there has been a lot of negotiations. So I appreciate that and that working together. We do want to address neighborhood concerns. So like during the last meetings, we talked about outreach and neighborhood outreach, what the developer could do to make sure that they meet with the neighbors. At this time, it's kind of unusual because there had been COVID shelter-in-place restrictions, and there was less than normative meetings and outreach. But yeah, I feel for the neighborhoods. We raised some of these issues before, a lot of these issues. So again, as Commissioner Del Negro said, we didn't repeat them again. But if there are issues with the infrastructure, storm, flooding, we really need to raise those with city staff. And our city is undergoing major renovation with developing the general plan. There's just major transition to more urbanization in our city. So we need to really give feedback to city staff about needs for capital projects, flooding issues. The city has monies for capital improvements. So if we really highlight these needs and issues that are really concerning, we need to escalate those and prioritize those from the city staff and address those through our city processes. So just a note on that, if looking at any other fatal flaws, we noted that the flooding is separate from the sewer system. The circulation, we're really pushing, every commissioner here is pushing for second egress on that parking lot. And if it goes into the west side exit near the train tracks and open up that EVA lane over to El Camino, then that could be a second egress and reduce the burden of traffic and blockage when the train comes on that side. So I'd really think if the developer can really consider that second egress and opening up that EV for circulation, and it would really help circulation around the entire facility. And even maybe consider having that as a vehicle access for somehow putting in garbage pickups so that the garbage truck can go around that EVA loop and then pick up garbage in the back and not have to pull off garbage in the street. I think we've heard from every commissioner here that they have that concern about, well, most of the commissioners have, majority of the commissioners have concerns about that second egress, about the garbage pickups. So I think I'm tending toward looking at any major issues and any concession compromise we can make to make this project more successful and more win-win for the entire neighborhood community. I think that might be a small concession to make, to consider as part of, if we are to approve this development.
Do the applicant, I guess I should give the applicant a chance to answer that in terms of the second egress. I don't know if there's a majority of, so I try not to speak for planning other commissioners, but I'm not sure if there's the majority, but regarding the second egress, but since Commissioner Wong is asking, would you like to, Mr. Davidson or anybody else, like to address the possibility of opening up a second egress and relocating the trash to that side?
Yeah, we've obviously, yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. We've looked at that obviously many times through the years, and Obviously, life safety is the most important thing. So we've got the EVA that provides that life safety free of any blockage of cars or anything like that in the event of an emergency. And so at this time, the single entrance for the garage is adequate. It's proven to be adequate. It's proven to be adequate on other projects that we own and manage and have built, many throughout the Bay Area. And all the reports point to that as well. So at this time, the one entrance is probably best suited for this project.
Okay, Commissioner, I know the other commissioners have, Commissioner Wong, are you done for now? Can I move to the other commissioners, or? Did you have other
Again,
questions?
just emphasizing that, takes a village. A lot of people have different concerns and raise different points and have different points of expertise. I appreciate public chiming in about, concerns about very low income housing and all the other issues. It's just a myriad of issues that we can address right in this meeting right here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Quigg?
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about the letter we received late today from the water department. And I would tend to believe that we would want to be good neighbors, and that the staff would be working diligently with the water department. They brought up a couple of concerns, and that it would be addressed by staff. I just didn't want to just let it go. And just be assured that we would work, the city of Millbrae would work as well as possible to make sure that we're good neighbors.
Do we want one of the staff to
comment?
Okay.
Just a comment. And we've worked on this project for such a long time. Like every other project, it's probably not perfect for everyone, but there's times that we have to look at the betterment of everyone, and will the project enhance the city of Millbrae? And I think it would. So I just kind of wanted to put my 2 cents in about that. And I'm sure they will look at the trash. I'm sure they already have. So that's about it. I think it's a very good project. A lot more people than we want to see along the El Camino, but I think it's just something that's going to happen.
Okay. Did you have any your thoughts on the parking in and out the garage having in one?
It's going to work. Whatever way it is, it's going to work. People get used to certain things. Years ago, I was very concerned about a street or something, and one of the consultants said that there's such a thing as a learned behavior, and that people know how the parking lot works. It may not be the best, but it works. I mean, so many of them. My sister-in-law lives in an apartment house that has a lot of units, a big condo project, and they only have one in and one out, and it's always worked for them. So it works. If it's the way you would really want to have it, maybe not, but it does work. The only thing that concerns me is in the case of an emergency, and if the state and the fire people say that it's okay, I can't make it change.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Vice Chair Davis.
Hi, thanks. I'm going to start with the parking thing because we just talked about that. No, all the commissioners do not feel the same way that we need to change the parking. I would like the staff and the developer to one more time explain that the garage is safe and that it was built to all required standards, that this isn't a willy-nilly decision. It is proper. Same with the garbage idea. it sounds like a whole lot of thought has gone into this and they've come up with the best solution. And I think we have to trust them that they've looked for every possible way to improve it. If later they can make it better, that's great, but a lot of thought has already gone into these things. You want everything else? Anything else? It's
Yes.
kind of kind of random order.
Yep.
There were many comments that came from the public about flooding, and the Planning Commission should do something about that. The flooding in that neighborhood is a general issue for the city. It's not an issue for the Planning Commission. It's not related to this project. So there's really nothing we can do about that tonight. It's not that it's not a problem, but it's not related to this project. There were also comments about what sound like sewer capacity, and I can't comment on that, but that too is a general city issue, and we need to make sure we put that in the right place. It sounds like there will still be parking available for the staff at the nursery school. Did I hear that right? And could somebody help the nursery school, feel that way? Can the staff, one more time, explain how noticing works to neighbors and neighborhoods? And on top of that, help residents understand how they can also proactively find out what's going on with the city with like email notifications and whatnot. But can you explain again how that works? Like, there's limits to timing and how close properties are. The entire neighborhood of Marina Vista may be outside of those boundaries, but there's still ways to be finding out. But can you explain those things one more time to help people stay informed? In general, the project is beautiful. It is going to be a huge positive impact on Millbrae, bringing new residencies. As a community, we do have an obligation to add more housing, and this is going to do a lot to move us in that direction. The very low housing is very hard to bring in, so that is a huge bonus. What else? Like I said, back to the design, the modern Mediterranean, I do see plenty of Mediterranean influences in the design. I have no problems with that. And just one more time, thank you to everybody who's worked on this for so long, so many years, going through some pretty serious challenges to the project, and I'm just glad it's in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, Vice Chair Davis brought up a few things, so let's pause for a second to let not pause, but why don't we let the staff address. I thought it might be good to have maybe if we draw up the site plan, if we call that up so that we can show where are the red line, where's the red zone, where's the white space, just to give everybody a good visual of it. I think that might be helpful. So can we do that?
Sure, Mr. Fielding.
Okay.
Can you please pull up the plan? While he does that, I can respond to some of the comments.
That would be great.
Questions from Commissioner Davis. With regards to the ingress egress, so the plans were reviewed by Building Department, Public Works Department, Fire Department, and they were reviewed to meet current codes, and the parking garage does meet all of those current codes from a life safety perspective and from life and safety perspective. With regards to the noticing, legally, we're required to notify all the property owners within 300 feet of the site. And so we've also noticed on the San Mateo Daily Journal, and this was done 10 days prior to the public hearing. And so we've, in addition to those two, although it's not required by law, we have a interested parties list. We have the contact information, either email or mailing addresses or both, for people who have contacted us regarding this project and wanted to learn more about it. And we have notified them through either email or additional mailing. So those are the three notifications that we have sent out to the neighbors. In addition, it's also posted on the city's website. We have the city's webpage for this project, and then also the public hearing website as well. In addition, the applicant had conducted outreach and held a neighborhood community meeting back a couple of years ago after the study session with the Planning Commission. They sent out notices to the neighborhood as well.
Thank you. Do we have Mr. Fielding, do you have the site plan
Yes.
ready or circulation? I'm not sure which is better.
The site
Site
plan.
plan.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, let me pull that. I just had it.
And I will add that while we're required to notify everybody within 300 feet, it could be that those property owners that are beyond that radius may not have been notified. And the neighborhood extends further to the east. So it could mean that they fall outside that radius.
Thank you. We could see this one, or is there a map that has the like the red and white markings, or Mr. Davidson, if you wanna, can you just point them out? I don't know who does to do this.
I'm not sure I'm able to point.
Oh.
Sam,
Mr. Fielding.
Sam's got, yes.
Yep.
I have the pointer.
Or at least if you can describe it. Yeah, if you can do your best to point it out.
So, yeah, I would defer to the developer on the white zone, and the red zones would be the recommended red zones from the traffic impact analysis. Recommended some red zones at the driveway entryway, so that the garage driveway, and then at the entrance to the off of Center Street to the lobby area. And then I believe earlier when the developer had the slide that talked about the loading, where the loading would occur, would be right about here. So there's a 45-foot wide, there'd be a 45-foot wide loading curb here, because this is where the loading access would happen.
Sorry
Is that
to
correct?
it's
okay.
It's closer by the bike where
closer to the bike. Okay.
Right, and then you can see
I
the
see it
elevator
here.
coming in. Yep.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. It was near the bike.
So it would be adjacent
right
to the
here.
red zone? It would be right next to the red zone?
Correct.
Almost, okay.
Yeah, thank you for that correction.
I thought somebody had their hand.
Oh, question for staff.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought one of the applicants had their hand raised. Just
I was just going to offer to show that exhibit that we had on earlier that defined.
Oh, okay.
that would be great. If you
Sure,
could please do
sure.
that.
Let me go off.
Okay, and while you're doing that, Commissioner Wong, is your comment related to this, or because I don't want to?
Yes, so I just wanted to make sure that the traffic study that was done, that it addresses normative traffic patterns, that somehow the COVID reduced traffic pattern, everyone sheltering in place, hasn't artificially created some type of low traffic density that we're not overlooking here. In the staff's estimation, is that traffic study representative of normal traffic patterns?
I'll answer that. Yeah. Mr. Black previously said that all the traffic counts that were the basis of the analysis were collected pre-COVID. And some engineers are now kind of adjusting things because more folks are working at home. And I think in an apartment community like this, you would actually see trips kind of go down because people are working at home. But regardless, the counts were collected, the modeling was done before COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I think this would be good to see. So if you can, either Mr. Borges or Mr. Davidson, kind of talk about it a little bit.
You bet, yeah. So just to recap on this, so we working with staff and concerns about visibility, being able to see those bikes that are coming down Center Street. We work with them to incorporate this 25-foot red curb requirements on either side of the parking garage to make sure we maximize that visibility. And then partially in review of move-ins and also how trash was going to be handled, we found and located this 45.5-foot white curb area, working with staff as well to find an area that was closest to the garage, closest to the trash rooms for that process, and also close and easily accessible to the elevators there for move-ins. And then just if I could to just one more slide here, kind of showing the improvements that are being done down Center Street. So there is obviously some concessions and some parking was lost, but I think everybody would agree that the addition of the bulb outs and the crosswalks and the safety that that brings to Center Street far outweighed the loss of the parking stalls on that particular location. But you can see all these red marks here. We're going to be adding on pavement striping to help organize parking out on Center Street a little bit. I think right now that's a challenge out there, but as you can see, several of those parking stalls in and around San Anselmo will remain.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to keep myself organized. Anybody else have any other further comments or questions? Commissioner Del Negro?
So just to be really clear about that white staging area, that is obviously where the trash cans are going. Is that right across the street from the nursery school? Like directly in front of the school?
Do we have an exhibit on that, Gary?
I can pull this back up. I believe the school is right on the corner.
It's on the corner of San Anselmo.
If memory serves, let me show
I just don't know how far that white zone is away from that cross.
I think it did show the intersection, so that would be good.
Right, the school would land here.
We're not seeing what you're.
Not seeing it.
Oh, sorry. So the school would be in this location. And so right at the bulb outs, the parking here, and then that 45.5 foot section would be right about here. So kitty corner, yes.
Yeah.
And
Is that
could
the
you-
loading zone or for the trash?
For both.
For both?
It's
dual
the same.
purpose,
I believe it's
correct.
for both. So the trash there could theoretically be a trash bin out there every day. Is that? No.
No, and that's not the
Trash plan.
intention. I think part of it too, it's going to be a bit of a learning process as we work through that with the waste management group. Just understanding the best times for pickups for them. I know they're heavily concerned about that as well. Making sure that it's in an easily accessible area for them so that they're not there for extended period of time. So they were highly favorable of this location for obvious reasons. But I think as we learn too, and I think we're going to need more pickups while we go through the lease up process as people are moving in, purchasing stuff, you've got more cardboard in those particular times. But as the project begins to stabilize, we'll be able to get much more consistent in forecasting the amount of pickups needed each week to adequately service the residences.
Can you pull up T0.5?
Sorry?
Can you pull up the trash plan T0.5?
Oh, T0.5. Do you want that to be
Yeah, that's the
pulled up?
table.
Okay.
That's the projected table. Just make
can
sure
you
the public
pull-
sees it.
Can we pull that up, please? T0.5.
Are you
I don't
asking
know
staff to do that?
I
or-
think staff,
Oh,
yes.
Okay, yeah, I could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're calling up different things, but it's really helpful for people to have a visual and see.
Okay.
Probably just the fourth to last page.
Okay.
Scroll all the way down. Yeah.
T4 and 5.
0.5.
Right there.
Bottom left-hand corner is the table of weekly collections for each service. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's a pickup on every single day for different items. And the projected times where the trash bins are out at 5 a.m. The pickup should be by 11 a.m. That was the window provided. That's 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
So can there be a simple solution, like just put a fence around it so it's not unsightly and the garbage collection can just open the gate and unload and then close the gate again?
And that's something that we've often tried to request, but a lot of times the waste management companies don't want to have that extra step and having their drivers get out and open them for when they're there to pick up and then again close them afterwards. Has been a common obstacle that we've seen and something that was addressed and discussed here as well.
How about any other vegetative curtain or barrier or something that minimizes the view of garbage cans?
I don't think you can, I mean, this is a street, so I don't know. What,
Doesn't it
you don't want to
also,
put, you can't put things on this in the middle of the street.
doesn't this also block the view out of the parking structure when you're coming out?
We would still have that
There is the red
25-foot
zone.
clearance red curb there.
Okay, can we, are you okay to not share this anymore?
Yeah,
Commissioner
I just wanna make sure
Gunnico?
the public sees
Okay,
it.
if we can take
On
it
record.
down. Yep, thank you. Okay, do we have any other comments? So Commissioner Wong did mention a possibility of creating a second ingress to the garage that leads through the EVA lane, and then maybe the trash can also be picked up, held there. Is that something that's been considered or looked at, or would that be feasible if not considered? I know you've said that the fire department has already said that the current is safe, but is that, I'm just wondering if that's something that has been considered.
Yeah, we've considered all those things, and it's we cannot allow the trash trucks to stage on the EVA. Is the long story short.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that
Is it
that
a
wouldn't
matter of width? Can somehow a fence be slightly moved so that it allows more width for vehicles to pass? Or
We've maximized the width for the emergency vehicle. So for the fire trucks to be able to get through, that lane is maximized. That access road is maximized as it is.
And is that the same case for a second exit or entrance to the garage? Is that also because it has to be designated for the fire lane?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any more questions or thoughts from people? I'm not giving anybody, this is a hard one. It's a big project, so we're trying to put a lot of thought into this. Commissioner Wong, I think, raise your hand first.
yeah, we just always try to find and broker some compromise with neighbors, whether it's a single family residence or larger facility. Really want to see some compromises made. I would like to really see some compromises made towards some solutions to address neighborhood concerns. And this one, I do see that there is that one egress from the Marina Vista neighborhood. Maybe in the future, there could be a second crossing across the Caltrain tracks, but that would be a capital project. But there is this one bottleneck that comes down Center Street for that one neighborhood and through that one garage. To me, it seems like to make a tweak to the design to address that would solve a lot of problems. In the meantime, we need to look down the road towards all these issues for the Marina Vista neighborhood, for obviously the flooding issue and then traffic circulation and egress out of that neighborhood too.
Commissioner Delmego.
So 300 feet from this development does not include anything but the first 5 houses along Monterey Street within the Marina Vista. So pretty much the entire community of Marina Vista was left out of notification. Just to be very clear, they would have had to see it on a public website or have come across it digitally online. They wouldn't have been notified. I think that is a shortcoming, obviously not informing a community that is this impacted by a development. I also
That is something that is, I think that's our ordinance, you know, that's the rule of what we're supposed to do. Mr. Conneran, have you had, can you maybe speak to that? Is there, like, if you have a neighborhood that's going to be more impacted, and even if it's 300 feet away, is that something that could be treated separately in terms of a notice requirement?
It's not a legal requirement. The 300 feet is a legal requirement, and I think Commissioner Del Negro is right. I mean, the first 100 feet are the old trolley right away, the Caltrain right away, the BART subway box, and then in that park, it's 100 feet just there. So
this is Sam Fielding, senior planner. I want to add that the project applicant did have a virtual community meeting on August 20th, 2020, and they mailed a notice to residents within 1,000 feet of the project at the city's request. And then they also maintained a website that's still active for the project, which includes a page about the community meeting. And there's also a video on there that has the results of the virtual meeting. So we did work with the applicant and to have them do this community meeting where there was additional outreach to residents within 1,000 feet of the project.
Thank you. That's helpful. Sorry, I'm writing notes. Okay, Commissioner Quigg.
This project has been around for so many years that unless you moved into Millbrae or Marina Vista in the last 2 weeks, you should have heard about it either from a friend or someone else. I mean, this did not just happen. And I know it's important to get consensus. I'm a consensus builder in general, but everyone has known about this project. And I was at that community meeting that was on Zoom, and they were extremely good as questions, and you could email them questions, and there was phone numbers. So as far as the outreach, I think that they have done as well as, and probably more than a lot of other projects because of the length of time that it has been publicized. So that would, and I actually, Mr. Del Negro, I did not hear all your last comments from your last little, I don't know what happened, but as far as outreach, they have. So I just want to put my 2 cents here.
Thank you. I think Mr. Del Negro was just noting that it's the Marina Vista neighborhoods are beyond the 300 feet. So they wouldn't be within that usual notification area.
So it's been.
But Mr. Filling did say that there was a notice to 1,000 feet, up to as much as up to 1,000 feet for a meeting in.
Yeah, I think that's been,
that has been
brought up several times tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is difficult. And one thing Commissioner Davis, Vice Chair Davis mentioned earlier about staff letting people know, if you go to the Millbrae website, city website, there is actually a way for you to sign up for email updates. And that's pretty useful. So I'd encourage everybody, not just for this project, but in general, to sign up for the email updates, because those can be very helpful to do. So with that, do we have any other comments or questions? Or Mr. Connery?
Madam Chair, before you take a vote, I did want to mention we should do ex parte disclosures of any contacts that commissioners may have had outside the hearing room.
Thank you. Have there been any contacts with the developer outside of this?
No.
Looks like no. No, there have been none.
Or members of the public. It's not just one party. So
okay.
I mean, I think Commissioner Quigg attending the the virtual town meeting, that would be an example, but she's discussed that. I don't know if others attended that.
I did
That would
attend
be-
that also.
I attended that in 2020. I was only a participant. I mean, I was not a participant. I watched it.
Sure, but it's where you gather in information, so it doesn't have to be a two-way conversation. It's just,
Okay, well, thank you.
yeah, thanks for reminding me.
I have heard, I don't know if I need to, I mean, there are comments about this on Nextdoor, but I haven't engaged with anybody on it. So I don't know. I try to be very careful about that. So I'm not sure. When you say members of the public, that gets a little more difficult because people will call you or stuff. I haven't really had conversations with people, but do any of the other commissioners want to have any other ex parte communication disclosures you'd like to make?
Had a few conversations locally with residents who were unaware of the project, even as of this morning. But nothing that would be substantial associated with prior meetings or with any of the developers.
Yeah, only meetings with city staff to discuss the project.
Mr. Conran, is there anything else, or is that?
That's it.
That's taking. Okay.
Thank you.
So with all of this, do we have further discussion or motion one way or the other that anybody would like to make?
I guess I'd like to ask, following up with Commissioner Wong's, really not seeing a lot of movement in any way to try and help mitigate the impacts on the Marina Vista community that have been raised by quite a few residents. That concerns me if there's been no traction or willingness to seem to adjust at this point. I obviously wasn't part of the years-long process to get to where we are, but it doesn't sound like there was a lot of communication already with that community, let alone mitigating the impacts. I haven't heard any major transitions in the program and the project that have been directly aligned with the requests of the Marina Vista community.
Also, I noticed on the drawings, a lot of them are dated June 2020. So I'm not sure if the designs have remained the same since that time or if they've substantially changed to address our previous meeting and concerns. But, we did raise some of these issues before, like the second egress for the parking garage. And I thought that would have alleviated a lot of these circulation and concerns. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit some of these changes incorporated from our previous meeting.
Did you want did we want to have some clarification on that? Can we get some of that from either staff or applicant in terms of changes since our study session?
Mayor?
Sure, Mr. Davidson.
Yeah, so the study session, I think, was April or May of 2020. And so this plan set was out of that study session. We did pick up those, the red curbs. We did the study on the garage. We have the windscreen on the pool fence. I mean, those kinds of things.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Wong? Okay, Commissioner, Mr. Borges. Sorry, I'm trying to keep order here. So if everybody can just let me know if you want to speak, and then I'll call on you. Mr. Borges?
I was just going to add, in addition to during some of our initial public outreach, we were able to meet with some of the residents in the marina as well. Several of them were happy about the extension of the sidewalks and some of the improvements that were being done to Center Street down there, as well as the safety that was coming in. I think a lot of them at least voiced their that they were happy to hear that something was being done here, being the end of the BART line. There's a lot of unwanted activity kind of centered around this particular area of town. And so they were hopeful that this would maybe help alleviate some of that. And in addition, the park across the street, obviously we're hopeful that something would be done on that side to help improve that area. And Anton hopes that some of the park fees that we're paying, may go to help improve that park area over there that the residents of the Marina District voiced concern about as well.
And I'll ask, is there an easy way if residents have questions? I know there's a website, but is there like a main contact person that people know they can reach out to you if they have concerns about the project as it moves forward, because it is a 3-year process when it does move forward. 3-year process, the whole construction. So I know, yeah, so if somebody can answer that, please.
I mean, this is Sam Fielding with City of Millbrae. They can reach out to myself, by email or by phone if they have any concerns. And we can, we'll work with to address those concerns, and also reach out to other departments if they relate to other areas or departments in the city.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'll have another thought in terms of the trash, because that was kind of came up as would it be appropriate to add something into conditions of approval to, I'm not sure how to talk about this, but to somehow work on the, reducing the time that it's out there, or kind of being able to coordinate with the preschool and make sure that, it's not out there during the times of pickup, that we don't have garbage trucks out there during pickup and drop off times, and that could cause an additional burden, or during commute hours. Is there something that we could do to mitigate that at least? Or
We'll certainly talk to waste management and try and tighten those hours up. Our hands are kind of tied when it comes to that, but we're happy to work with them.
And I'll just add that the city can work with our trash provider, San Francisco Scavenger. So, we have the contract with the trash provider, gives them that authorization. In fact, city council authorizes that contract, and staff implements it. And I will say that in cases in the past when there's been friction, because let's be honest, everyone has trash, okay? And there historically been stage on the street. In fact, it's the norm. And so this is not an unusual special condition. Large projects can sometimes accommodate it on site, but I will say that all the major higher density projects I've worked on in the last 25 years have basically all staged on the street. And the city has worked closely with those, those apartment owners, multifamily owners, commercial owners, to minimize impacts on adjacent properties. We do that in our downtown now, for example, because we have alleys where trash is staged, and those are EVA alleys, and so we want to make sure those are free and clear. So the city can, have a collaboration here to work with San Francisco Scavenger to minimize disruption on the neighbors. I mean, my experience is that they prefer to come early, and they prefer to not come every day. They prefer to come once or twice a week, and really minimize disruption on the neighborhood, because they have a schedule and they've got to keep moving. But we can certainly work with them to minimize impacts on the neighborhood. But I just want you to understand that this is a normative condition. It is something we've approved elsewhere and will continue to see. And it's actually great that they have the white loading zone, because that kind of protects it. But I do envision this occurring early in the morning, probably honestly before the preschool even starts, because that's the nature of trash, is that they like to get out there as early as possible. But we can certainly work with them to minimize impacts.
Okay. Right,
and
thank
frequency.
You.
With that comes frequency. There's also compactors that can be added post-project. So on projects where I've worked on, where there's a huge volume of trash and too much frequency, which I'll be honest, I think it's just very expensive. The scavenger company doesn't really like to do that. Compactors can be added inside the trash room, which will compact the trash and then also minimize pickups. And that's also very effective with, guess what, cardboard, because there's also a huge increase in cardboard deliveries that a lot of projects are having to retrofit for nowadays. So those compactors can help a lot.
And is that something that you're saying that could be worked on post?
Possibly. I mean, again, trash is life of the project condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we're always trying to maximize efficiency. So like Garrett said, there's a peak in the beginning, people are moving in, buying a lot of stuff, getting, having a lot of boxes, and then it kind of peters off. And it's just something that we have to actively manage. And we do that everywhere in town for the most part. So we'll continue to do that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Quaid. You're muted. Commissioner Quigg, you're echoing.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the little
Yeah.
button. There's other large projects in the city of Millbrae, and they all bring their trash out, but it's generally for a few hours. Yes, maybe it's going to be every day, but I don't think the truck or the trash container is going to be outside. If it's managed correctly, they have to bring the cans or the containers out. So if they have good cleaning services throughout the building, with that many people, you're going to need staff. If they just pull them out in about the time that they're going to need to be picked up, and then they put them back in. Trash, as Darcy Smith said, is an issue. Part of it is that people don't manage the trash well, and sometimes they need to have more, what do you call it? This goes here and this goes here and this goes there, so that it makes it easier for the trash collectors. But there's no reason to hold up a project for trash collection, because no matter what goes in there, you're going to have the same issue, whether it's this development or another development. It is if it is a good management company, they will manage the trash. And there's no way of knowing. I think there's a little bit of history with this company, with Anton, that they will manage the property correctly, and then there would not be any trash issues. With that said, you know what? I'm going to make a motion that we approve the project, and we'll see where it goes. I'm going to make a motion to approve the project, the design review permit for the project located at 1100 El Camino Real and 1150 El Camino Real, 33 and 35 Center Street, to allow the demolition and redevelopment. And as the chair had said, it's all in there. So I am going to make a motion to approve the project subject to the conditions and the agreement that has been made and all these other documents and attachments.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Listen, I know there are hands raised, so I'm not ignoring you, but Mr. Conran, go ahead.
There's actually two resolutions. The first one is to approve the environmental document, so that might be something you wanted to act on, and have the design review motion second.
Should we do that separately then?
It needs to be in that sequence.
Yes. Okay. So if we can, sorry, Commissioner Quigg, if you can go back and to the two resolutions.
Which one do you want first? The environmental?
Just go in the order that it was in. Where is that?
Right in here.
Stanville Communities Environmental Assessment. Skia.
Yep.
Sorry, I need your help. It's on
Page 19 of the staff report.
Yeah.
Okay. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission of project by making the following full, there it is, 1 and 2.
So we're just doing the first one right now.
Right. Adopt a resolution approving a resolution to adopt the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment for a project located at 1100 El Camino Real, 1150 El Camino Real, 33 and 35 Center Street, to allow the demolition and redevelopment of a 6.7 acre site currently occupied by the Best Western El Rancho Inn with the new 5-story, 384 unit multifamily apartment community on approximately 5.55 acres, of which 5% or 19 units will be at the very low income affordability level based on the findings for approval, attachment 1.
Thank you. Do we have a second for this resolution?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before we take the vote, Commissioner Wong and Commissioner Del Negro, I know you have your hands up. Did you want to have a discussion just on this portion, the SKIA?
Not
Yes.
just on this portion, no.
Okay, not in this portion. Commissioner Wong, on this resolution?
No.
Okay, so can we have the call for the vote, please? Our staff, if we can have a call, have a vote.
Sorry, I know I'm on mute. Commissioner Wong?
This is for the first part or both?
Yes, for the first resolution.
Resolution.
On environmental?
Yes.
The SKIA, your report, yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Del Negro?
Yes.
Commissioner Quake?
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis?
Yes.
Chair Joe?
Yes.
A motion passes 5-0.
And does this have a 10-day right of appeal as well, Mr. Conlon? They all do?
If the larger issue is appealed, yes.
Okay. So this may have a 10-day right of appeal if the whole issue is appealed. Okay, and then Commissioner Quigg, did you want to make a motion on second?
Okay, and the second one is adopt a resolution approving the design review permit and lot line adjustment and lot merger for a project located at 1100 El Camino Real, 1150 El Camino Real, 33 and 35 Center Street to allow the demolition and redevelopment of a 6.7 acre site currently occupied by the Best Western El Rancho with a new 5-story, 384 unit multifamily apartment community, or approximately 5.55 acres, of which 5% or 19 units will be at the very low income affordability level based on the findings for approval and attachment 1 with Exhibit A conditions of approval attachment 2.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Davis, Vice Chair Davis. And then we can do, I guess, some discussion on this. I see Commissioner Wong first on my screen. So did you have a comment or?
Yes, just to comment
to
that, if I'm at my home or a place of business and I look across the street and I'm staring at a garbage receptacle, whether it's in a residential neighborhood or if it's along Broadway, I don't want to see trash on the curb, on the sidewalk. That's not the type of city I'd like to see develop. Like there's going to be many, many more of these developments, but then coupled with the issue of single egress along Center Street for an entire neighborhood and entire complex, that could create a bottleneck that could be solved by putting in a second egress on a parking garage with some modifications. I am disinclined to approve of this project.
Okay, and Commissioner Del Negro.
Yeah, we as a city stand to gain a lot of benefit from this project. The very low income housing, impact fees, property-based tax income, redesign of Central Street. These are great improvements for pedestrian facilities. And of course, some really not specific traffic mitigation at the ECR California Drive, which I really still don't feel is very clear. But this comes at a great negative impact to and cost to what is already a less advantaged community within Nobre and often a neglected community, and that's the Marina Vista. I am highly concerned. The trash right now is not collected on the street. It's collected within the El Rancho at the back fence. They could work with something in this element, whether it's working with us at with the San Francisco water property for access points. There should be an alternative here than putting it on the street and really negatively impacting the Marina Vista community and the nursery school. It's been there forever across the street. I wouldn't want to daily drive past these bins. I wouldn't want to have to see them outside of a nursery school my child's going to. And I think the claim that there's no substantial impact on local traffic is absolute hogwash. This is a very busy street, Center Ave. I have sat on traffic already on this street. To say that you're going to suddenly put 560 new parking spots and all these residents with their cars and not have a negative impact, I don't believe it. I'm sorry, there's just no way. And I don't see any clarity on how they're going to resolve that. I can't stand by a project that hasn't flushed those elements out prior to an approval.
Thank you. Did we have any further discussion before we go? Oh, Mr. Conroy, thank you.
Yeah, I would just note, Commissioner, that there has been a change in CEQA in terms of the environmental document, that the traffic impacts are not measured as an environmental impact. I know we've already approved the environmental document, and you're welcome to have your opinions in terms of this project, but it's not a significant environmental impact if that's what you were leaning towards. Thanks.
Thank you for the clarification. And I see both of your hands raised still. So did you have further comments, Commissioner Wong and Commissioner? Okay, just trying to make sure. And Commissioner, oh, I think I lost Commissioner Quigg. Is she? Oh, I see you. Okay, sorry. When you take your hand, put your hands up and down, people move on my screen. Okay, so Commissioner Quigg or Vice Chair Davis, did you have any other comments you'd like to make before we take the vote? Because we do have a motion and a vote.
No, I think there's been plenty of conversation on this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let's call, oh, Mr. Conlon?
Just one more comment. I mean, if the commission is concerned about this traffic or the trash issue, you could consider putting this matter over and seeing if there could be additional work done rather than rejecting the project outright. I'd sort of like to suggest that. However, if the votes are there to approve the project, I would allow, I think you can go ahead and approve the project.
I'm sorry, can you clarify? So
I'd say if the commission is inclined to reject the project on those bases, I would suggest that we just simply put the matter over and allow them to work with staff and see if they can come up with a solution. However, if there's sufficient votes to approve the project, I think you're certainly in a position to do that as well.
I see. Okay. I don't think it's just the trash that's an issue in terms of Commissioner Wong and Commissioner Delnego's concern.
Traffic, et cetera.
Right.
I mean, whatever the issues are that would motivate it.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second. Let's
Right.
maybe call for the vote and then we can decide.
Yes, Commissioner
Next steps
Quigg.
are.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to make another very quick comment. The items that are being discussed by Commissioner Wong and Commissioner Del Negro, I don't see it being able to be fixed. Maybe the trash a little bit, but if you think if they can be fixed, I don't know. I've been around a long time.
Okay, so if we do have a motion in a second, so let's go ahead and call for a vote at this time.
Commissioner Wong,
Hey,
Commissioner Del Negro,
Hey,
Commissioner Quigg,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Chair Joe.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2 with Commissioner Wong and Del Negro voting against.
Thank you. And although we do have action items, I think I would like to see some of the concerns to be part of the record, if that's possible to do. We don't have to go into the whole discussion, but at least some of the main topics of concern, just to make a note. For me, even the thing with the I would say, first of all, there's a 10-day right of appeal. So I'll just have to say that. And then I think this is, with the trash situation, the staff, the reason why I'd like to have them in the minutes and make sure it's on the record is so that the staff has said they can work closely with the applicant, and the applicant has said that they would, try to work with the trash company and make sure that it has the least amount of impact. So I think I would like to have that in there, make sure that is part of the record, as well as concerns regarding the traffic flow and how to handle that and the impact on the neighborhoods. So is there anything else that we should make sure we have on record? I'd like to kind of open. I think those were the two main issues, the egress, the circulation, and the egress. Just to note that it's not just to the complex itself, it's not just the parking garage. There are actually two other ins and outs exits as well. So, or I'm sorry, yeah, 2 others available. Okay, so with that, I guess the motion has passed and we will, there is a 10-day right of appeal. So we'll move forward. Excuse me while I find my agenda. Okay, so we'll move on. Item number 5 is new business, and I don't see any new business. Item number 6 is our staff updates.
Just one update for the commission this evening. The survey regarding the city's 2-unit/urban lot split ordinance, also known as SB 9, closed on March 4th. Actually, we gave the community a little bit more time, so we closed it on March 6th. We did get 38 responses to that. So thank you for all those who participated in that survey. We appreciate it. And we'll be going to the city council regarding this item in the near future. I'm not sure what date yet, but in the near future.
Thank you. And tomorrow's meeting. So we have a meeting tomorrow. Would you like to?
Yes, tomorrow the commission will be joining the city council at a study session at 5:30 until 7 regarding the specific plan update. And that will be on Zoom as well, right prior to the city council meeting.
So this is the downtown and the El Camino.
That's correct. The downtown El Camino Real specific plan, the new specific plan. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do we have, so moving on to number 7, planning commissioner announcements. Do you have any announcements? Commissioner Wong, are you raising your hand? I can't see your hand. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yes, a comment. You know, again, we received the package pretty late last week. And so preferably, I would really like to receive any major development designs and packages at least a week ahead of time. There's just not enough time to really contemplate and review the package thoroughly. You know, if it's a major package like this comes in last minute, I'd request that you know, to at least delay the meeting, or I may just excuse myself and drop out of the meeting if I don't feel like I have enough time with such short notice to review such a large package.
I've asked for that in the past, and I think it's hard to do, hard to get it because it's a lot of information that the staff is working on. I don't know if staff want to.
We have all requested that.
We've always requested it when we're doing the MSASP, that it was more than this. So I think there's a difficulty. I don't know if Mr. Mata, do you want to, or Mr. Smith, do you want to?
Yeah.
Any comments to that?
So we do the best we can. It's really tough because, you know, one hand you can give it weeks in advance, but then we'll just delay the project hearing. We do also have statutory requirements pursuant to the Permit Streamlining Act, where we would need to act on a project within a certain amount of time of deeming it complete. So it's one consideration. Also, you know, we do want to be mindful of everyone's time. We do make a concentrated effort to clear the planning commission meetings for large projects such as this, so that we have the time to discuss the project. I say the next project that the commission will consider, or one of the larger ones, former Office Depot or 210 Adrian, that we'll do what we can. Yeah, we totally hear you. It's just that there's a lot of work that does go into preparing these packets, and so we just want to make sure we're thorough.
I noticed that some of the documents, you know, have different dates because some of these studies come out at different times, December, January. So it might be beneficial if you just forward what's available as it comes in, so that we have a chance, and just note that this may be put on the calendar for upcoming March or something. That might be helpful. Even if you're able to just forward it as you receive it, if that's possible, that would give us plenty of time to think about the project, give it more thought, review it thoroughly.
Maybe we can have some thoughts
Understood.
about, yeah, work on something like that. Commissioner Del Negro, did you?
Oh,
have
yeah,
any-
I was just gonna concur, this was for me a 10 to 12 hours worth of work or review over a weekend, this is a substantial amount of work to put in. And of course, that's what we volunteered for. I'm happy to take it on, but more flexibility would really, really help me.
Yep. And then we still have the 140 plus pages for tomorrow to read up on if you haven't done it yet. So it's quite a lot, but thank you all the commissioners and for all your time putting this together. It's hard. I mean, going through all of this, and then definitely the staff putting this together. I just can't imagine. And this is not the only project they're working on. So I think can never thank the staff enough. I feel like I say that every week, but I really do mean it. And I think I know all of the commissioners feel the same, I think. So I would, I think it's a lot. We have a lot going on in our city. So any other announcements that anybody would like to make? Oh, my shredding, I have a shredding party at Mills High School, April 30th. Just letting you know, it is free, but we take donations from Mills High School. So, and it is e-waste recycling as well. So help save the environment, clear out your homes, support the school, win-win-win. So I'd like to encourage everybody to do that. So no other announcements. Our next meeting will be, do we have?
The next meeting will be canceled.
Next meeting, okay.
The 21st, we will not have a meeting.
Okay, so we had a long meeting tonight. We have another meeting tomorrow, which will be not as long, I think. And so no meeting in 2 weeks is very welcome for us, I'm sure, and for the staff as well. Okay, so with, I don't see anything else that needs to be done. So let's, we've gone through the whole agenda. So with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the Planning Commission meeting for this evening. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.